Let's fucking do it. Let's go. Hello and welcome, connoisseurs of fine common cardboard, to today's live stream and to this iteration of Let's Tune, where today I've got my good friend Brownie, Fyndhorn Brownie, the legendary mono white meister himself. How you doing, buddy?
Well, how you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. We just got done with a hectic, busy day at work here. I was just letting you know, sometimes these Mondays are like this frantic thing where, like, in the morning, I'm like designing my thumbnail in the 15-minute break that I've got, and then lunchtime I'm marketing it, and then maybe if I hadn't done that by then, I'm like releasing it at the next 15-minute break, and then I'm like rushing home and getting it all done. So anyways, today I had to go shopping because I'm going to be going to Shambhala Music Festival up in British Columbia for a back-to-back with Bass Coast. Usually I don't like to do them so close together, but these two are quite simply the best music festivals in the world, and I just couldn't pass it up. Too many good people going there, too many good friends, too much good music. So here I am. 3 days I'm going to be leaving, or 2 days I'm going to be leaving for that. So I had to go and pick up some Landjaeger and some protein powder and some magnesium and a bunch of other stuff just to make sure I'm all prepared for like 5 days at this marathon of a music festival where undoubtedly I will be dancing for 15 hours a day, 3 days in a row, and it's going to be amazing. But I'm glad to have you here. I needed backup. I was like, man, I can't go into this. Can't go into this alone. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely happy to do it.
Mm-hmm. All right, chat. Let me know if you are able to hear us coming through. I'm going to just do a quick adjustment on my interface here. Make sure I can see the chat and that you all can see yourselves talking here. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear us talking right now. And with that, we're going to hop right in here to this. Make sure I can get the chat window showing and all that. Let's see. We got this one here. And we're going to go boom, 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 like that. Derpy Panda, what's up? Glad to have you here. Thanks for joining us today. Let's see. Pull this here. I wonder why that is not working. This is one of those classic. Oh, I got to put it in front. That's why. Yeah, it's just the little things you got to deal with Discord. So, okay, there we go. Yes, now you can see yourselves talking, which is always nice. So, yeah, good to see you all here, and hope you all are having a great day wherever you're at. Today, Brownie and I are going to be tackling a little bit of basically going through decks that have received a lot of new cards or decks that need to be updated, and we're going to go ahead and do that. It's really helpful to have a second person here when I do this because from the live streams, and Brownie, you know this too, the hardest part and the part that takes the longest, like an hour of every live stream, is like the last 5 cards, right? Easily. And so I think what's going to be really helpful here is being able to run through some of these decks that really just, they need a little spruce up. They're not bad decks. They're still great commanders, still strong concepts, but we need to basically update them with new cards. And so the first one, and maybe we'll do a couple that are like on chat request or something like that, but the first one that we're going to work on that I mentioned to you is Sailor's Bane. And Sailor's Bane, I saw somebody post this on Twitter asking like, man, this seems like a really great commander. And it's like, yeah, I think Sailor's Bane is easily one of the more like forwardly broken uncommon creatures that we've had printed into our format in a long time, maybe like top 10. The card reads 9 mana 7/7, has ward 4, which means that to target it with a spell or ability, you need to pay 4 extra mana to cast it. And it's Murktide Regent, except it doesn't have flying, and it doesn't grow on its own, but it does come in much larger. This spell costs 1 colorless less to cast for each card you own in exile and in your graveyard that's an instant or a sorcery card, or a card with that has an adventure. So essentially the game plan of this deck, the modus operandi, the MO here, is to cantrip a whole bunch of times. We're going to try and put a bunch of stuff into the graveyard. We're going to try and slam this thing on turn 3 or turn 4. In playing this deck in the past, the threat level of it is so high because you can two-shot people from a very early stage. You can start killing people quite quickly. That there's a tendency for the table to gang up, and as well, there's a tendency for the deck to suffer from combat damage. This is a classic example of a deck that really, I think, took a bit of a hit as the meta became more plural in terms of how many creatures people were playing. I can't really think of a deck I've built in the last like couple months that doesn't have like 20 or more creatures in it. And so dying to like random creature beats is kind of like the price you pay for having a 2 mana 7/7 ward 4 that only ever costs 2 mana because it doesn't matter whether it's in exile or in your graveyard. So we have to build around that a little bit. Now, the backstory here is that when Sailor's Bane was first printed, I was almost certainly the first person not in R&D playing with it because I printed out a proxy of the card 3 hours after it was spoiled in Japanese, had it translated, and was like, good God, this is fucking broken. and immediately thought, man, this is like a legacy deck, right? We're gonna be Xeroxing incredibly hard. And the term Xerox comes from like the 90s, I believe, late 90s, when people in, I believe it was in California, came up with this idea that you could cut a lot of lands from a deck if you played a lot of effects that just replace themselves, cheap or free spells that replace themselves every time you cast them. And that by doing so, you could create a deck that was incredibly consistent, that basically always did more of what it wanted to do because it was always like card selecting and cantripping its way through to its other spells. It's a lot of card velocity. And of course, there's utility printed on a lot of these cantrips as well. So Xerox decks tend to run very light on lands. They don't need very many of them. This is one of them, right? We have 28 lands. We have 28 spells that draw cards, basically. And most of them are 2 mana. Many of these ones that are more expensive are actually free. Even Gush is free. We should actually go ahead and change the mana cost on this here. This is what is this? How do we do this? 0, like this? Make sure that's put where it's supposed to be. And then Hieroglyphic Illumination is another one here. This one is just blue for this one as well for the purpose of this deck. Sometimes you cast it for 4. So yeah, really low mana curve. And this deck was like a response to really, really heavy combo metas where everybody is doing combo. You've got like a Pure Sight Marrow and a Tatiova and maybe a Lore Weaver, Ley Weaver, or an Armix, trying to control those things, and you just absolutely bulldoze all that stuff. You only interact as the last player on the stack, and then you kill people one by one, right? And you've got all these counter spells and all this interaction to do so. So it was very predatory for combo metas, and I think back then it was really good. I had a lot of success playing this in heavy combo pods, but as the meta evolved, as the initiative came around, as Gut came around, it was like, holy crap, we can't just be taking like 14 or 15 from random stuff as it goes around the table because people don't know who you're going to swing at, right? So essentially, like, 2 things need to happen. You need to be communicating clearly, but we also need to build our deck to have creatures in it. So I built this version of the deck, which actually has 12 bodies. They come on spells as often as we can, or they come with some way to put things into the graveyard or get card advantage. And essentially we're able to create somewhat of a roadblock or a wall or, you know, some deterrence for coming after us in combat while we hit people with Sailor's Bane. So, Brownie, you're a person who really likes, you do some mono blue stuff as well as mono white. And
Well, I will point out this is my second stream and my second mono blue build, even though I'm the mono white stan.
You are
But
the
yes.
mono white maester, and yet here you are for the second mono white or mono blue build. The first one, if you all haven't seen it before, was Avalanche Caller, and that's a deck that you've had a lot of success with. You've been running that thing back over and over again. I think because of the Let's Build streams, I'm always kind of pushing forward with something new and different, and not always able to return back to my decks. And honestly, it's like that's the goal. We want to create a starting place for people who can then take that deck and iterate on it. Because the first build of Avalanche Caller was a Ghostly Flicker Peregrine Drake deck. And then you came back to me, you said, Ryan, what about Freed from the Real? We're putting the Freed from the Real on an island. Why don't we just combo that way? And that ended up being the better version of the deck, I believe. And I think you're on the same boat with that. And so these are always starting places. So we'll leave running the reps on these ones mostly to you all, the community. That's what it's here for. We've got Andrew Ziegler saying, Brownie, looking at the deck like, but where is white? Yeah, understandably. We are going to do one white-ish thing, and that is we're going to be adding a double strike spell to the deck. And that is not a blue thing to do. That is kind of a white-red thing to do. And Brass Knuckles is a hell of a card, so that'll definitely be going in here. We've got Zachary Robbins saying that Avalanche Caller list looks so solid. Yeah, it really is. I think Avalanche Caller is pretty underplayed. There's not a lot of combo decks out there that both that like okay, Avalanche Caller. Most of my wins with Avalanche Caller were not with a combo. It was just like 24 damage. Woo! Here you go. Whew. Get it. Get it. You
Hit
just
you
swing.
with Manlands. Yeah. Hit you with Manlands.
Yep. Hit you with Manlands. They're hexproof. Like they're hasty in a sense. Yeah. So ultimately, like the deck has the ability for a very, very fair win condition, while it's also like I can just sit there with 12 mana up, and it's like, are you actually going to swing at me? Because I'm going to literally wrath your board. And then if they don't, then then you go and you draw a bunch of cards. You cast your 6 mana draw 3 instant spell, and you do some other nonsense, and oops, there's the combo, and it's like on your hexproof creature. So very cool deck. Pretty underplayed. Does a lot of the things that I like in a combo deck, which is that it's resilient. It has a great plan B that doesn't interfere with the plan A. Right? Plan A is probably combo. Plan B doesn't diverge from that at all. There's literally like Freed from the Real and Drift of Phantasms. And Drift of Phantasms might just be good enough in the deck as it is to find lots of other stuff. Andrew saying, whoops, not on my Scooby account. Oh, good. Okay. Good to see you, Scooby. Nice to have you here. Scooby and Brownie are like peas and carrots, so you guys work on a lot of mono white stuff.
What's up, Scooby?
Yeah,
I will mention that I have actually in several games now, I've drifted not for Freed from the Real, but for Fade Away.
Oh yeah.
What that card has been. Yeah, I think you want to talk about that one, and I think that's a good one to look at, especially for a deck like this. So I mean, as I'm looking at the list, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, really in a lot of ways, this is playing mono blue like tempo control.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
I'm getting heavy like counters vibe, a lot of draw. The Xerox thing I think is spot on.
Yeah.
And a lot of effects that are attempting to control the board to tempo everybody out until you're ready to cast into a very cheaply costed Sailor's Bane, and then go face.
Yeah.
There's a deck in Standard right now. There's almost always a deck like this in Standard, and I play a lot of Standard outside of Pauper. There's a deck like this in Standard called it's just mono U tempo, and it does essentially the same thing. It is just a ton of draw counters. And then it wants to resolve, actually, format All-Star for us. It wants to resolve a Tolarian Terror, and it wants to resolve a creature called a Haughty Djinn.
There it is.
And the Haughty Djinn is a really neat card because it's I resolve that as like an 8/4 most of the time.
Oh yeah,
it's
like,
very
this doesn't
easy to
die
do.
to very much. It's like dies to like improvised club, and maybe Heartfire's not in the format anymore. Not much. I mean, I mean, it's flying, right?
No, the strongest thing in the format right now in Standard is Sacrifice. Like each player sacrifices a non-token creature kind of thing.
Really? Okay.
That is actually one of the those kind of things are really rough. Other than that, though, but it plays very similarly. So along those lines, one of the things that deck wants to do, if it can, is just bounce the board as much as possible. Now, Fade Away is not a bounce.
It's a lot more
but
than
it
that.
looks a lot like it.
Yeah. No, I think that this is a card that has. I mean, man, it's just so funny. Like, in full transparency, like I haven't been playing this format for very long. I've been playing for 3 years. It just so happens that these last 3 years have been so pivotal for the format in terms of evolving the cPDH scene, as well as evolving just Pauper Commander in general. There's been so many powerful cards printed into it. And Fade Away back in the day, there's definitely people out there who have been playing this for like 10 years or more, cPDH, I mean, or just Pauper Commander in general. But this card was kind of like a meme, because there weren't very many creatures. There were a lot of decks where they would just be like, I don't know, like they'd made a lot of mana, right? Like you cast this against a Gretchen or a Weavers or a Tatiova, and they're like, what? Like, they don't really care. But I think that this card really has found its time to shine. Blue really needs cards like this that are basically asymmetric advantage for you and asymmetric disadvantage for all of your opponents. And it's not just a little. These aggro decks have a tendency, and really most decks have a tendency to tap out a lot. And when they have a lot of creatures in play, this is absolutely devastating. If you're looking at like you know, TPI, just look at like the top decks in the format right now. And when I say top, I mean like these are decks that are popular. You know, they may not be necessarily even the best, right? But they're just what people like to play. They're powerful. They do something reasonable. They attack the meta from a good angle. And look at them. You know, we got TPI, Third Path Iconoclast, makes a ton of bodies. And I've definitely been fade awayed, and it was savage. I mean, it completely resets your board. And you know, you're probably like paying mana if you can to keep like your Firebrand Archer and maybe like you know, a Tandem Lookout or your TPI or something. But all those 1/1s are gonna die, and you're gonna have to rebuild. Fade away is all, and really like TPI is a classic example of a deck that just kind of like raffle stomps a deck like this in a way. It puts a lot of threat on it because it's like all these 1/1s, you don't care. You just turn them sideways, man. Get in on the. We're kind of like a combo player in a lot of ways. We don't have a lot of blockers. You can get a lot of freebies in at very low cost. So gut is another one. You can devastate a gut player with this because those are not 1/1s that you don't care about. Those are 4/1s and 6/3s that your opponent put a lot of resources into making. They had to play a card, sacrifice that card to make a better creature. So they're upgrading rocks and lands and treasure and blood tokens into 4/1s. And it's not a small thing. I mean, you've done, I mean, we've talked about this, but you've like ruined the career of some people with fade away, right? Like what do you think what do you think your ceiling hit has been in terms of like 1/4 blank with fade away?
The last time I think I resolved it in a game, I was playing against Battlecry Goblin was in the pod,
Oh God.
and
Oh.
so
Oh
was
no.
Amber Hardy.
Oh
So
no.
those are, yeah, those are two very like creature beats, very like want to go wide, and in Amber's case want to go tall as well. And that play on a very tight mana base. So there's a point where fadeaway becomes less good. If it's late in the game, most players, I think, if they've played against the card, are going to say, I'm just going to sack my lands and keep my
Yeah.
board.
I mean, it depends on how many
But
creatures they have, right? Like,
exactly, if they have if it's like early to mid game and they're trying to get their game plan going and stabilize, you're going to run into a situation there where, okay, I got to get rid of some of these creatures. And
yeah,
against
yeah.
the Battlecry Goblin, it's been tough. I actually played that same player with that deck just the other night, and he was like, "Oh, you're playing Avalanche Color? That's it. You're dead. I'm going for you first."
Yeah, yeah,
He's
right.
just
You're
been
like too
traumatized
scared.
by it.
Too scared, yeah. And you know, I think that gets to this thing, which is that a lot of these decks too, if you look at their land count, you know, quite frankly, like you know, gut Boros gut decks are running 33 lands. They're running like 8 to 10 rocks, maybe. I don't think it's 10. It's probably like 8. So you're looking at like a little above 40 mana sources, and there's a decent chance they're going to have more, you know, creatures in play than they actually have rocks and lands, which means that it's actually not just going to be sack your entire board, but it's going to be taxing some of their lands too, or their permanents, right? And it's backbreaking. And so this spell is not a meme anymore. It's not a joke. It's not like Carduor Doomscourge was the same way, where it was like people like would like drop in chat, they'd be like, or you could play Carduor Doomscourge, nerd. And it's like, dude, that card fucking rails people these days. It's like you cast that thing on a board where there's like 24 power worth of gut and like 10 power worth of TPI, and dude, bodies are gonna hit the floor. Like it is like drop-in time with something like that. You go the whole
Relevant
table.
question. Yeah, I think the relevant question to ask at this point in the meta is, what are creatures doing in our format?
Yeah,
And the
so
quality
much.
of creatures has gotten so much better.
Yeah, yeah, and the
So
necessity
as
for
that
them.
gets better, yeah, the answers to them need to also
They
catch
do.
up with that. And so fade away, like you said, not so good in a combo meta where there's not a lot of creatures. Now that we have a bunch, now it's getting better.
Yeah, this is popper stonks right here for sure. Like you definitely need to be considering this in your decks, and even if it's going to cost you a little bit, it might actually still be worth it if you still have a few creatures that you're, you know, maybe you need to tax yourself a little bit, or you need to sack some stuff. Like even if you had to sack like your 2 incidental blockers in a combo deck to cast the spell, if it's gonna like, you know, if it's gonna really dumpster the rest of the table, it might still be worth it. You know, you might still cast this, sack a land or two to keep your pneumatic wall around, whatever it is. You know, Gretchen players could be playing this too. This is a card that you can tutor with Drift of Phantasms, just like you can Freed from the Real. If you're in a pinch, you don't play a lot of creatures. You have like untappers, right? And so you drop this down, and the reality of Fade Away, and one of the reasons why people didn't like it for a long time, and why it doesn't see play, I think in 1v1 in particular, is because if you're dead on board and it's a 1v1 game, your opponent just sacks their lands and kills you, right? And so it doesn't feel good there. But in this, we talk about cards like Ashes to Ashes, a 1 for 2. We get, Edict is a 1 for 3. This is way, 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 way above that. This is easily like 1 for 20. I mean, truly, that sounds nuts. I don't think you get ratios that high in this format that often. With Fire Cannonade, Breath Weapon, Pestilence, Crypt Rats, Evankar's Justice, Eyeblight, Massacre, you do. But this is another one of them, right? So definitely excited. And the reason we're bringing it in here, really your best homes for this are going to be anytime you've got low creature count. And if I'm like wrathing my opponent's board because they don't want to sack their lands, and in a multiplayer game, a person will almost never sack their lands, like all of them, to keep their creatures in play because they have to win the game against other people, which makes Fade Away just that much better. So we've got Zachary saying, played against Sailor's Bane the other day, and he came in second, lost to a wide board state after attacking and eliminating someone else exactly the way you were saying. Fade Away is savage, magic vibes only. Absolutely. That's iconic. And I've played a ton of Sailor's Bane. I've got the deck like foiled out. I've got a bunch of nice cards in it and stuff because I really think this is just like a format staple. You're just not going to get cards like this in the command zone very often that like discount their own cost passively with something you already want to do, have ridiculous built-in protection. Ward 4 is kind of hexproof. Like, it's really close. And the funny thing is that the kind of counter spells we play in this deck make it feel so bad to like pay 6, pay 7, pay 4 for a snuff out, and you're just like, Force Spike, days, and it's like their whole turn was spent trying to stop you, and you might not even kill them, right? You might just kill somebody else, but they had to take their whole turn off to do it. And so it kind of acts like Ward 4. Ward 4 ends up acting like hexproof in a lot of cases, but it also acts a little bit more. It's kind of like, well, maybe it's actually Time Walk for your opponent when they actually cast the spell. Discard a card, Time Walk yourself. It really goes way above like your sort of SEOR type stuff. And SEOR also doesn't stop, it's not Ward. It's just a bubble, right? It's a 2-mana bubble. This is Ward 4. This stops Aether Spell Bombs, Executioner's Capsules, Seal of Doom, onboard stuff, still has to pay the tax. So, okay, so long little run on there into why we need to play for, Fade Away, but it really plays into just generally speaking, like some of the cards that I want to bring in that really just need to be in the deck, right? And so the cards that we're going to bring in here that we're looking at are beyond Fade Away. We have Seba Cryptomancer. Seba Cryptomancer does absolutely everything the deck wants to do as well. And there's a couple layers to it. Seba Cryptomancer is one of the best protection spells in the whole format because it protects against edicts, it protects against removal, and it leaves behind a +1/+1 counter. Now, why is the counter important? Well, this deck happens to care about being 8 power because, 8 power is a 2-shot in this format with the Sailor's Bane. 16 commander damage is lethal. So this is absolutely everything we want. So Fade Away, Seba Cryptomancer. We're also going to be looking at potentially playing Lorien Revealed is another one that I really want to put in this deck. Lorien Revealed is the newly printed 1-mana island cycling. It's also 5-mana draw 3. And cards like this are fantastic because not only is this putting an instant or a sorcery in our graveyard that's basically a land. Like, we will cut a land for this card. And I've gone on record, and I'll continue to run this back over and over and over until people start to really understand what these cards are. These are MDFCs in Pauper. They find dual lands, they find utility lands. This finds Mystic Sanctuary to get another spell back. It just finds islands. So it's like Ash Barrens Plus, but if you're flooded in the late game and you need some action, you just cast this thing and draw 3 cards. It's amazing. Combo potential is aside. It's just a great fair card to put in. Cut a single basic and put this in your deck. For every 1-mana land cycler, you can cut one land. Now, if they're 2 mana, don't cut lands, but 1 mana, all you need to have is one other land and that card, and you're going to be able to find your second land, which is usually key for mana rocks. So you can go turn 1, cycle, find your second land, play it, play your mana rock, you're off to the races. You're going to draw another land, right? So Lorien Revealed is high on that list as well. And then the other one is Rush of Knowledge, okay? And yeah, Rush of Knowledge is a great card to discard because we can get it back with Mystic Sanctuary in a variety of ways. Now we have 2 ways to do it. But this card is a 5 mana draw 9 in this deck, which you're not, I think, going to... There are going to be times where this won't feel good. You don't have enough mana, you know, something of that nature. But the reality is that, like, generally speaking, most cards in your deck aren't in your first 10, right? Like the first 10 cards, it's only 10% of your deck. So this is often going to arrive when we need it, right? Which is when we can cast it. And if it's not, look, we careful study it away, we mill it away. Maybe we can get it back later on with Lorien Revealed, or do we have any of the Mnemonic Wall effects in here?
We do not. Academy Wall.
We have Academy Wall, and that's it. Okay, but none of the other ways that we can get back this card. So it's really just Lorien Revealed and Mystic Sanctuary. And of course, Mystic Sanctuary we can get back with cards that return lands to our hand. Like, you know, you can see a turn where maybe you go, you know, end step, you have Mystic Sanctuary in play, you go Gush, you bring it back, you play that, and then you can play the Mystic Sanctuary, get the Rush of Knowledge back. John A says, I don't agree with cutting lands for the 1 mana land cyclers in every deck. I like the lands too much, but the blue one is easily the best in the cycle. You know, so here's the thing, John. If you play Ash Barrens or if you play Evolving Wilds in your deck, it's the same thing. The only difference is that Ash Barrens you can actually play without paying mana. You can play it as a colorless source, and that is an advantage. But I think most decks actually care about this kind of thing a lot. If you're in black, you can cycle them for Witch's Cottage, and then you can bring it back with Reaping the Graves, Wander in Death, Blood Fountain, Witch's Cottage, Mortuary Mire, Haunted Fengraf, and then you have your late game built into your mana base, right? Which is phenomenal. So like Thrall Parasite's a great example where it's like, I just brought this in for a land. And I think that... And so I think that really it's the 1 mana land cyclers you can definitely cut lands for, because the math still works out. If it were a land instead, it's just going to mean that you're going to have to play a land, tap it to find your second one. And that's really, most decks are fine, right? It just adds in this like extra layer to your deck. I think that the Lorien Revealed is very good. I don't know that it's the best one. The ones that I find the most useful are the Troll of Khazad-dûm is absolutely cracked. I mean, it's a 6/5 triple menace. Like, it's nuts. The green one, Generosent, probably not high.
I think that the important thing with the new land cyclers that we got is that each one does something very good for each of how those colors are designed, right? So, like, when you look at like doing like a mono blue deck, right? So with this island cycler, like you said, can act like an Ash Barrens, but in this specific deck,
it's even better.
Do something even more.
Yeah.
You get your Mystic Sanctuary, right? You put this in the graveyard, and then it's reducing the cost of Sailor's Bane by 1. You can cast your Sailor's Bane, play your Mystic Sanctuary, put this back on top.
Yeah, this is even better in this deck than it is. I mean, it's a ritual in this deck, right?
Right.
I mean, every instance of sorcerer is a ritual.
The other thing that's really, I mean, like, if you look at all of them, like, I could talk about the white one quite a bit. The white one is a 6 mana flying creature that gives your board +1/+0 at first strike. I think it has a scry ability as well. So first of all, for those who don't know, mono white decks love scry, because basically most mono white decks want to get to a certain amount of mana and then they never want to draw a land again. And so if you can scry away land, that's very helpful. White has, like you're showing right now, has excellent reanimation, so you can pull this back to the graveyard at a discount. Or if for somehow you were able to flicker it, like you get this for 2 turns, and white has some of the best flickers in the format. So, you know, they all do something for their individual colors that are very strong.
I mean, look at these cards. These cards are all very good for their mana cost. Like, I think in the past, like, we have to look at this in the context of what we used to have, which was, you know, we used to have cards like 2 mana island cycling for a 3/4 flying that costs 6. This is a 6 mana 5/6 unblockable that island cycles. I mean, even in combo decks, these cards are bodies that you can block with. I mean, like, they're so good. Like a Tatiova could be like dying and they have all this mana and they're like, okay, here's my blocker. Like if nothing else, right? Or it casts 2 blockers or something. And maybe they don't die, right? Or maybe they've had their combo pieces, exiled. And, I've lost to Tatiovas being killed by a Shoreline Ranger. That's kind of a meme as well because it happens a lot. But like sometimes life totals are low and you're not dead because you've been gaining life. Or maybe it's like a combo pod where everybody's just staring at each other and trying to see who's gonna combo first, and maybe you just decide, no, I'm just gonna kill you guys with an unblockable 5/6, and when you try to combo off, my counter spells are for your combo, and it's the onus on you to try and get through it while I kill you. Um, so we've got a couple more comments. Zachary saying, "I'm glad I made the move to cut 1-for-1. Had a great luck with the blue, green, and black ones in the cycle." Yeah, I think they're all good. The Oliphant is insane. Oliphant is so strong. I've had this where I like cast an Oliphant, gave it haste with a Stirring Bard, and then you're just cracking in for 8, and it's both of them are trampling, right? Like Oliphant also gets Dwarven Mine, which I'll scroll down here and show you kind of some of the stuff you can find with this. You not only get both dual lands, so you're never going to be out of a dual land, almost never are you going to be out of a dual land. But you also get these ones here. So like a good example would be Oliphant and Eagles of the North. You mentioned the reanimation thing. In Shadowfax, I'm running both of these, and man, you cycle them away on turn 1, get a land, play your 2-mana rock, turn 3, reanimate one of these bastards, and you just start killing people. Like on turn 3, you are going to have a huge creature. And that's really, so if you're in white, you can reanimate them. If you're in black, you can recover them and cast them later, and just get a ton of value layering out of it. So they're phenomenal, like across the board. And I just don't know that there's a whole lot of decks that don't want to play them. I really, really like these cards. Like even Abdel with Lorien revealed, you just tap down 2 of your 1/1s and you've got a 5/6 along with your 4/4 unblockable Sword Coast Sailor, right? Like that's 10 damage that you can push every turn with those 2. So we've got Download Melty. Exhuming Troll is a power play for graveyard decks. Get a Swamp, Exhume for a 6/5. Yeah, Exhume doesn't really see a lot of play in the format just because it's giving so much value to your opponents. And unfortunately, Black has yet to get Zombify. It's a bit of a travesty that we don't have like good Black reanimation for this format. And I don't really consider Exhume to be good that way because giving your opponents creatures as well, if it's like mid game, it really, really, I mean, you might be giving them like the initiative, you might be giving them a Gary, you might be giving them a combo card. Like there's a lot of stuff like, so not as hot on that, but we do have like Summon Undead is one that's a 5-mana one, but then you're really not discounting the cost at all. It's more like I'm just trying to get a card back. So, but anyways, it's just to say that these are very good. I think these are also very good too. And something that I'm actively exploring is actually playing 3-color decks where you can play a ton of these and then doing reanimation and recovery stuff. I'm going to be doing, we might even work on it tonight, but Mr. Orfeo is a good example where it's like all of these cards are huge. All of these cards receive the double strike very well. Many of them put counters on things that stick around, and all of them can be gotten back with Reaping the Graves, Wander in Death, Blood Fountain, tons of other stuff. So anyways, just wanted to kind of talk about that really quick because this is an easy ad. We're going to cut an island for this right here. We got a couple other comments here. Zachary saying, "Good call on the Exhume enabling 2 Melty." Yeah. I think that the Exhume thing is something you could consider. It's just there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong there. But yeah, and Reaping the Graves is one of the biggest draw spells and most efficient draw spells in the whole format when you're playing a lot of creatures. So I really like leaning into that. Okay, so we've got kind of our targets here. The next one is Brass Knuckles. This is a newly printed card. I mean, so we don't have a double strike colorless spell until this came out. And they didn't just print colorless double strike. It's uncounterable. It makes a copy on cast. Now, if somebody does counter one of them, you don't automatically have 2 equipment into play because you have to have 2 equipment to give it double strike. But this card is really, really good. And in this deck, it's expensive, but double strike is just that good. It's just that good that we're going to play the spell anyways. Fyndhorn said, yep. So Exhume can be tricky, but good to know. Yeah, I think so. And it's possible that there's a time to shine for Exhume in a deck that can really control the graveyards well. Like maybe you, one way to do it is to play a relic, crack the relic, cast your Exhume, crack your relic that's in play, and then cycle the creature into the graveyard before the Exhume resolves, and then you can get the creature back and be the only beneficiary of it, assuming nobody else has a cycling card or a way to discard something like Channel. But yeah, Brass Knuckles is also on the list here. We definitely want that as well because this turns Sailor's Bane mostly into a one-shot, and we love that. Download Melty as a Zhao Dun Zealot. I will vouch for Reaping the Graves. Yeah, Zhao Dun's a really interesting mono black commander. It's got like horsemanship and brings back black cards from your graveyard. And Reaping the Graves is disgusting in that deck. And all of the cyclers are disgusting in that deck too. You know, because here's the other thing: if you play all these cyclers and you only rely on the 1 mana ones to be lands, the other ones are also lands too. They just aren't reliable to replace a land with, which means that the consistency of your deck just goes absolutely through the roof. Okay, and I've been playing this. I'm not just like throwing this out there as an intellectual exercise. Like, you genuinely are going to hit your land drops like 10-15% and more of the time because you have these cards in your deck, and you just get them back. And then you like Twisted Abominations, a 5/3 regenerate, like holds down the fort, amazing. Holds down a pestilence, amazing. So anyways, definitely good stuff to do. And Mizu saying, yeah, I can't wait to get a good Abzan shell using this in the engine. Yeah, something like Armament Core would be a really cool thing to look into as well right now. Armament Core is one of the few, if not the only Abzan commander that we have, other than playing like Sphinx of the Guild Pact, which that would be another one, doing a Sphinx of the Guild Pact like Reanimator Recursion deck where you just play all the cycling lands, get all your duels into play, have perfect mana, and then just like have all these nice value creatures. But yeah, Armament Core is nice. Having white and black in the same deck means you can do both reanimation and you can do recovery, which is really, 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 really strong. And green, also you get like Winding Way, and you get all these things that like mill cards into your graveyard so you can bring them back. It's like, oh my God. Flickers, you know, it's crazy. So, okay. So, looking at this list, and Brownie, do you have the list in front of you so that you're able to peek at it as well?
Yeah. I believe I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It looks like it says you last updated it 2 days ago. So yeah, I think I see that one.
Yeah, if you refresh, you'll see the Lorien revealed there. So looking at the list here, what do you think if we have 1, 2, 3, 4 cards that we want to add, where do you think our cuts are coming from?
So I think probably, considering some of the things you've been talking about, you might want to change some of what you're doing with your draw. The other thing too is in your evasion area. So essentially your evasion is there to help you push damage, right?
Yep.
So the double strike can kind of, if you look in there, you could say, okay, maybe there's something in here that is not as strong.
Yeah.
I want to push damage versus being more evasive.
Yeah.
That's an area you could look at as well.
Yeah. For sure.
I think I would be hesitant to change anything about the protection area because, like you said, the likelihood of somebody trying to get rid of that Sailor's Bane is pretty high. The other place you could look at it is you have a section here as well that says pump. Some of your pump is doubling as protection, and it's modal, like you come to a river, which is great. But that could also be a place where some cuts could happen.
Yeah, I think so too, because really, you know, one of the things that doesn't feel good in this deck is if you have multiple pump effects that, you know, they become kind of bad the more you get them. And maybe the idea here is because we're card selecting so much and we're, you know, drawing all these cards, it always felt like this is one of those areas where you could potentially cut. The trick is that some of these cards, like Tricks of the Trade, you know, this is like a 4 mana card. This is a lot of mana. It's a lot of mana. And even though they might not be able to kill our commander, they might be able to counter this and then block, which is going to buy them the time that they need, right? So, and it's also an enchantment, which means that it's really not feeding our game plan when we mill cards over to the graveyard. And you can see we have 18 sorceries and 37 instants. There's 1 creature in here as well. It's the Merfolk Secret Keeper. It is a creature, but it's also an adventure card. So technically we have 19 plus 37, so 47, 55. So it's like half of our deck is instants and sorceries. Anytime we can get that number up is definitely a good thing. So maybe something like Tricks of the Trade being like unblockable and +2/+2. It does everything we want, right? This turns our Sailor's Bane into a 2-shot. +2/+0 is nice as well, because if we only get in for 7 on a hit, we can cast this, go right up to 9 and hit for that full 16, which is really big. Stealth Mission is another option, although this one does leave the counters. It gives you unblockability for 1 turn. So early on, maybe you hit somebody who has no blockers, and then you cast Stealth Mission. You get that unblockability for that 1 turn, and the counters stick around, which is great. Bone Splitter does a ton of work in this deck because, again, it just sticks around, right? It's very good. But generally speaking, like what I've found is that the flying has not been consistent. That's one of the lessons that I've learned. A lot of flyers in the format, a lot of ways to chump. And when somebody has flyers, this deck cannot afford to swing into a player 3 times to clear like their Battle Screech. You know what I mean? Like, or a Soul of Migration. It really can't. It's going to die. So flying is not actually all that great, is one of the things I've learned. So maybe the answer is that we want to cut the flying things, focus on Aqueous Form, Artful Dodge. I was even looking at Invisibility. It's just that comes at the cost of not granting power, and that's concerning to me.
Right.
Yo, what's up, Gator?
Right.
Good to have you here, buddy. Thanks for joining us, my friend.
I do think Artful Dodge is an excellent card here, especially because you can discard it and that's fine, and just use
Yeah.
it for flashback once.
Yeah.
I would say in general, cutting some of these enchantments makes sense. There's a lot of
So-
like instants and sorceries that can just grant unblockable, can grant flying, and I think you could lean into those more than leaning into enchantments, because enchantments just don't work as strong here.
Yeah.
The other thing you could look at is if you wanted to have that repeatability that you're seeing on an enchantment, but you also want to get a body into play early. A card you could look at is Passwall Adept.
Let's see if we can find it. Adept. Pass Adept. Let's see if that comes up with
Passwall Adept. It's a weird name.
Okay, so this is 3 mana, can't be blocked. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Okay, so this is a blocker. It's also going to serve to uncounterably grant Sailor's Bane unblockable. That seems good. That's definitely a card we're going to drop in the considering here, because I think that, again, like one of the challenges of this deck is that you have a lot of layering of value where there's cards that do multiple things, you know, in any given form. So like you come to a river almost never comes out of the deck because it's like, it's pump and unblockability and a bounce, right? Like it's doing a ton.
Everything you want to do here.
Yeah,
and
everything
so
you want to do.
even though both of these modes you could get at a lower rate, it's better to have both on the card. Like you come to a river is just like the perfect card for this deck. So I would not change that at all. I agree.
Yeah, so Spectral Flight, Cartouche of Knowledge, and Arcane Flight are kind of the ones that come to mind. These are all good spells. Spectral Flight, again, does that thing where you hit somebody early on, and then you cast this thing, give it flying, hit somebody for the full damage, and they're dead. But with a lot of these creatures in here, and many of them being quite large and hard to deal with, like Talarian Terror, you've got a lot of these blockers that are like 0/3, 0/4, you know, 0/4 again. Like Archaeologist is frequently actually a 2 mana mill 4, depending on what you pull. And Iceberg Cancerix, Jeering Homunculus, we've got blockers that can like soak a lot of damage for us. So maybe the idea isn't to be as fast all the time with cards that are really efficient like Arcane Flight. So let's try taking these ones out. We're going to go take that into considering. Cartouche of Knowledge is nice because it draws a card, but again, we don't have problems drawing cards. Like this is not a pinch point, right? So I think we can get rid of that layering there. So I think the automatic include here is going to be Fade Away. Let's start with that one. Because again, this is going to buy us enormous amounts of time. And then the next one would be Artful Dodge, I think is a really good one here. Having 2 sources of unblockability while also feeding into our deck in ways that we like. That went under Evasion. Yep, Artful Dodge. There we go. Zachary says, have you considered something like Haunted Cloak for Vigilance to deter some of the damage coming from around the table and trample? Yeah, Haunted Cloak is a great card. It's a card that ultimately hasn't... I've played it in the deck off and on. It's expensive. There's no way to get it back from the graveyard if it gets milled, and we have a lot of cards that do mill pretty indiscriminately. Cards like, oh my God, my brain is melted. But we have cards like Mental Note. We have cards like where's the other one? Thought Scour. We have Pelagia Archaeologist can get it actually. I'm told Augur of Bolas can't. Augur of Bolas is another card that I'd actually like to look at as well, because it doesn't actually put anything into the yard. Right. This is like just a creature that finds an instant or a sorcery. Its consistency is very high, and it's a body. Right. If over half of our cards are instants and sorceries, this card looking at 3 of them is like pretty much going to be like 2 hits most of the time. So a 2 mana 3/1 draw a card. Look 3 draw a card is good.
The part I wanted to mention, and this goes to your play patterns and how you play the deck. I would assume most of the time when you can, you're attacking with Sailor's Bane. You're probably not holding it back as a blocker. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're blocking with
Yeah.
Sailor's Bane, you're in a bit of a tough spot. Yeah.
Right. I'm wondering what Vodalian Illusionist would do for you.
Okay.
Vodalian Illusionist is a 2/2 merfolk for 3, and it has an activated ability, pay 2 and tap, and target creature phases out.
Oh, okay.
The nice thing about this is, again, it just says target creature. It doesn't say target creature you control. It doesn't say target creature an opponent controls, which is one of the downsides of Sapphire Charm. Vodalian Illusionist. And I'm trying to look there. If it's not one of those.
How do you spell Vodalian?
Vodalian. Illusionist. So you can phase it. Is it not showing up for you? Maybe is this not
Is it
uncommon? No, I thought this was a common.
Oh my God.
Never mind. I'm talking about illegal cards. No,
good.
Shut down the stream. I'm talking about illegal cards. These cards don't exist in our format.
Ban Fyndhorn. And by the way, I meant to mention this as well. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on for this too was I wanted to introduce everybody in the live stream to one of our newest moderators for the Common Connoisseurs. Brownie has accepted a role as one of our community managers and one of the people that we hold in high esteem as a deck builder and just a general professional human being. And ban Fyndhorn. We'll make sure to do that in the server later on.
Talking about illegal cards.
Yeah, talking about illegal cards. Yeah.
But yes, I'm almost wondering if, is this a vanishing deck? Maybe vanishing is the one that you need for protection, because you could put vanishing onto Sailor's Bane.
You definitely could. The vanishing on Sailor's Bane, it could also be removal. The thing is that protection in Sailor's Bane is actually not generally the problem. Part of the reason that we run, part of the funny thing about Sailor's Bane is that even when people kill it, it's like, yeah, it slows you down a little bit. But the thing is, we don't usually care that much. Like, I've definitely let Sailor's Bane just die. And it's like, okay, you time walk me and I just cast my commander for 2 again. And that really is where Haunted Cloak is amazing. Haunted Cloak is a very good card. It's a card that I would very much like to have in this deck. So we could definitely look at it. The vigilance is the most important part of it, but like haste and trample are like not small things either. It might just be patently wrong to not have Haunted Cloak in here. It's just that every time I've had it, it can be troublesome. It can feel expensive.
I think that if you're going to include Brass Knuckles, I think it's going to make Haunted Cloak that much better.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The double strike with trample is going to be a good interaction.
And we have the Bone Splitter as well, so maybe we only need to equip one thing onto him. And the funny thing is that like cards like Brass Knuckles, paired with Serpentine Curve is still very lethal, probably. Serpentine Curve comes down huge. Like 18, just massive. Yeah, Winfro says, you had a good run, Brownie. Nice. You did well for a little bit there. Okay, so...
Yep, thanks for putting that in the chat.
Yep, totally. Okay, so other cards here that we could look at. What do you think about Modern Age? Is this what we want to be doing here?
So that's an interesting card to bring up. I do think what Modern Age does is an effect that you want. I think you want loot effects.
Yeah.
I think you're probably better off putting those on creatures. Modern Age does have a good rate, right? You're getting the first 2 chapters for a rate of 2. But it doesn't really become, like, let's say ideally you get this out on turn 2. you're not going to get that flyer until turn 4, and so
Mhm.
then you have a 2/3 flyer on 4. Whereas you could play, for example, like a Merfolk Looter, and that probably is going to give you the same effect that you're looking for. Are you paying into it? Sure. But what you're going to be doing as you go through is you're going to be sculpting your hand to have exactly what you need to answer the board state.
Mhm.
Given all of the different kind of stuff you have in this deck, like with the evasion, with the protection, with the counter magic, and with the draw, you'll be able, I think, with some looters to sculpt your hand a
Mhm.
lot more efficiently. This is a good one. Another one that I don't think is played enough, and I always am looking for a deck for it where it'll work. You're already on Snowlands, from what I can see,
I don't know
correct?
why, by the way, but yeah, I have them.
Well, I'll give you a good reason. I think it's because of the iceberg,
Oh, the
the
iceberg.
crab.
Yeah, yeah, the crab. Yeah.
You could play Pilfering Hawk, because Pilfering Hawk is a 1/2 flying bird, with pay 1 snow and loot. Pay 1 snow, tap and loot. So you get a 1/2 flyer, which could be relevant, especially in the games where you're playing with initiative, monarch, etc. But also, it's there as an early block. Like if you feel like your hand looks good, you could just throw this under the bus.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think loot is an effect you want. I don't know that modern age is going to be doing for you what you need,
Yeah.
because it still leaves you without a creature in play for a couple of turns.
Yeah, and chat, if you all are able to find anything too, I've gone through this exercise so many times, but any sort of spell that creates a body, that I feel like there's one that just came out, and I'm really having a hard time scratching my brain for it. A spell that puts a body into play that draws a card or gets you some sort of value is really where we want to be. Um, so it's kind of like type instant or type sorcery, O token, is kind of what we're looking for, I guess. Um, like we have counter target spell unless its controller pays. That's awful. Um, Counter target spell, put a blue. I mean, hard evidence. We just want more of this card in every sense of the word. Resculpt. No, we don't want that. The decayed stuff is all trash for this deck. Um, yeah, there's not a ton. There's
You
we've got
have hard
revenge.
evidence, which is really the best.
Which one? Yeah, hard evidence is as good as it gets, right? Tidal
Right.
wave is another one where it is kind of like a removal spell, I guess, like a 5/5 that we can block with, but that's not really what we're looking for. We just play maybe a kill spell instead of some sort. So we've kind of we're using all of them, and we're going to be looking in the future to get more of these for sure. And even I'm looking at our counterspell suite here, and I'm really wanting to get more stuff like daze needs to be in here. Um, Even something like disrupt or force spike would actually be even better. Force spike just targeting anything is huge, and again, people tap out hard, right, to do this kind of stuff. There's also a couple of other cards that came out recently. There's Latnam's Legacy. There's Ifara's Dispersal, which is the 1 mana bounce target a creature if it was attacking, Surveil 2. Um, yeah, Ifara, I think it's called Ifara's Dispersal. Yeah, Ifara's Dispersal. So 3 mana. It costs 2 less to cast if it's an attacking creature, but we only really care about it mostly if it's attacking. And then we're gonna return a creature and then surveil. I think this card probably pretty solid. It's not gonna allow us to. So at the very worst, this is 3 mana bounce a card, surveil 2, which if we didn't hit Sailor's Bane on turn 4, we will then hit it, or sorry, on turn 3, we will hit it on turn 4 if we just hard cast this, right? So this is probably good enough. Maybe we cut something like Runaway together.
Yep.
I like Runaway together, but I think this feeds our game plan too well. This is going to be, it's not draw technically, but it's like a form of card selection. Um, okay. Yeah, some good switches here. The other ones is we want to get days in here. So let's move this into the main deck. What's the cut for it? We could cut something like, so we have Miscalculation, which is a counterspell that cycles to draw a card. We have something like, we could cut Protection actually for days. So maybe we cut something like Mizium Skin. This
Yeah.
gives everything hexproof, which is potentially better. Dive down doesn't really do a whole lot for us. So let's cut dive down because now we have days.
Right.
Modern Age is definitely kind of on my potential cut list.
I think you can cut that one.
Yeah, I think we can too. Because again, we're like bringing in Fadeaway, which is like another card that's going to help us do the job that the blockers do, right? Like the blockers are like, you know, if we're cutting this for a blocker, but we're also like getting rid of everybody's attacker, then that's like really positive for us. I also have Jeering Homunculus in here as a goad. Um, I think goad is really strong. Fogging a creature. Oh, you know what we need to play in this deck? Oh my gosh. Okay. Everybody give a little shout out and claps to our main man Derek from the RC for finding the only blue fog in the whole format. And this is going to be a new one for a lot of you. It's Overload, okay? And it is downsize. -4/-4 to a creature, pay 3 to overload it. This is huge in this deck. I'm so glad I remembered it just now. This is an amazing card for mono blue decks that are concerned about dying. Because you can literally just like fog the shit. It's a massive fog, right?
So I would put that one, yeah, in. And then another one to consider is that does something very similar to this and synergizes well with Sailor's Bane is Sea Hag.
Oh, Sea Hag is another one that I was thinking about too, because it's an adventure card. So maybe Sea Hag comes in for a stealth mission. Is that fine?
Yeah,
Well, stealth mission
probably.
is an instant or a sorcery, so maybe it's Tricks of the Trade. Sea Hag is a it gives unblockable and +1/+0 to 2 creatures as an adventure, and then you can cast it for 5 as a 3/5 that turns off. It makes everybody's creatures really tiny, right?
4 minus, though, I think.
Yeah, so Sea Hag. I've wanted to put this card in the deck, and I think the fact that that this actually does feed the Sailor's Bane is really important. Yeah, -4/-0 until the end. Creatures your opponents control get -4/-0 until end of turn. Wait a second, is that? Oh wait, this doesn't do what we want it to.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I thought it was at the end of your opponent next turn. We've got Nicholas Phillipson. Welcome to the chat. Glad to have you here, friend. I've seen the Bloom Tender analysis. Good, really good content. Definitely got my subscription. Well, hey, dude, I'm glad that you're enjoying the content, and I'm glad you're finding value in it. Remind me about the Bloom Tender analysis. Is there a I don't recall talking about Bloom Tender, the Bloom Tender analysis. Maybe that's like a buzzword for something else that we've talked about during the live stream. But anyways, Nicholas, thanks for joining us, and thank you for your subscription. I do appreciate that. One day we'll have the little animated thing that, you know, doo-doo, and it shows when somebody's subbed. I'd like to get back on that, but we've been on such a busy summer this year that I have not gotten around to it. It is an instant or a sorcery. It does give something unblockable. It does have the potential that if you had Sailor's Bane and you had Serpentine Curve, you could give them both unblockable. It doesn't leave the power behind, and it doesn't retain the unblockability. But I think regardless, I'm not sure that I want to keep... the other one is 4 mana. It's a lot of mana. It's a lot of mana. And this deck,
Tricks of the
again...
Trade is a lot.
What's that?
Tricks of the Trade, if that's what you mean, yeah, it's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so Sea Hags won't work here. Sea Hag is really more for... you cast it and then you swing it on your opponent and they like can't kill your stuff, right? I think that's kind of the vibe. Okay. That's a shame that it doesn't retain that for longer. We've also got a couple of other bounce spells like Unexplained Disappearance, which surveils one, which is nice. We've got, let's see, what other cards have I left in here? Oh man, you know, the funny thing is Initiative in this deck is actually pretty decent too, because the Forge puts counters on things. You find a land. You know, being able to goad things is really good too. It's just that we don't defend the Initiative phenomenally, and we don't really want to be the attention. We don't want to bring that to ourselves already. But I mean, I don't know. It's a 0/4 flyer at the very worst. It's like a good blocker. Aarakocra Sneak has been in the deck at times. It's just that it's like kind of expensive, and but you know, getting your 5th land does definitely matter. Um, so that's one that we could consider as well. There's another card in here too, Compelling Argument, that I cut recently, but this card is very good in the deck. The reason being is that, you know, late game, early game, you cast this for 2, and this is a massive ritual, massive permanent ritual. Milling 5, you're probably, by our math, we're going to hit like 3 instants and sorceries, right? 3 instants and sorceries, 1 land and a creature is kind of what I'm reading here, or maybe 2 lands. And then later on, we draw it and we cantrip. We just draw a new card off of it, right? So cards like this are very nice for the modality, anything that cycles. So what are some other cycling? So something that is not a type creature, or not creature. Just want to make sure we have all the good cycling. There's another one, a Shroud card. That's instant speed Shroud that cycles as well that we could bring in. There's also Choking Tethers, which is kind of interesting. Uncounterable, tap something down. Probably never paying the full cost, but you do draw a card off of it, which is nice. I really like Dragon Wings in this deck. You know, we were talking about some of the flying effects and flying not being good enough. But this is something where we can cycle this away early. It automatically attaches to our Sailor's Bane. And then, you know, late game, we just cycle it to draw a card. It's in the considering for that reason. You know, we could also look at playing cards like Frostveil Ambush, as weird as they are, because if we have 1 mana draw ones, this is the same thing, but it actually has a spell on it, right? It's like a very bad card in a lot of ways, but like, you know. There's also Hampering Snare. Creatures your opponent control get -2/-0 until end of turn. This is also a fog, right? I kind of like that. We'll throw that in the sideboard. That one's very high on my list, actually.
It's definitely going to make it harder for some of those go wide decks, or like those very aggressive decks, to push as much damage.
Yeah, totally. Mage's Guile as well. This is the one I was talking about. Shroud for 2 mana. This also hits your opponent's creatures. Okay? And it cycles for 1. It's quite nice. Mental Journey. This one's kind of cool too. Basic land cycling. We can find our basic. This is actually very similar to Lorien Revealed, isn't it? This is like the same card. Huh. Okay, so we'll drop that in there. Something like Remote Isle is kind of interesting too. Or no, this is the cycling for 2. We already have Lonely Sandbar. What else do we have here?
Looking at for you Cipher effects, because those would also discount Sailor's Bane, correct?
Cipher.
Because it exiles the spell.
You are totally right. Hands of Binding is one of the best ones that I can think of. And the reason Hands of Binding is so good is because this basically, like when you cast it the first time, you ice one thing and then you attack and you ice another thing. And then you ice something every single turn. So if there's a really scary thing on the board, like a Dargo you're concerned about, or a Rilsa that maybe is like pushing I mean, Rilsa would probably just push normal damage on you because like commander damage isn't super important. But you can ice something every single turn. Cards that like a Gretchen, you could attack. This is tap target creature and opponent control. So you can hit other people's creatures with this too. So you can hit one player, but ice the Gretchen's untapper. That's pretty good. I like that. Yeah, and it's nice because it's in exile. So this is still a card that contributes to Sailor's Bane. Although once you're casting this on Sailor's Bane, we're not concerned about its cost anymore. But having repeat effects like this is so important. Like having a Sigil of Sleep in here would be really nice too.
Yeah, I'm thinking for because Sailor's Bane is going to be like a mid to end game play, right? So having this in here, if you can get it down early to ice something, buy yourself a turn or two. If you have something like just an evasive flyer, you know, looking at your list, what would take this early if it wasn't Sailor's Bane? That's really the question.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot, so it's really just for Sailor's Bane, but like We should also be real too that a lot of the cards are in here for Sailor's Bane, right? It is
Or
a
Sailor's
Sailor's
Bane,
Bane
right?
deck, so it's not awful to run that. And I really like that it's a repeat thing. That's really important, I think, in this deck to be able to repeatedly ice things or repeatedly neuter things is very good. What did you think about Security Bypass? Do you have any thoughts on this card?
That security bypass really messed me up in some games. Like other people, my opponents playing it and like just making a very problematic creature unblockable. It's great value.
Dude,
I can
this in
certainly see it.
Armix destroys.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's very good. I mean, when you consider it, you're probably going to be attacking alone with Sailor's Bane most of the time.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's certainly it fits the pattern. The downside of obviously is that it's an enchantment, so it doesn't fit the pattern, the play pattern that you're trying to do. Um, so that is one of the
It
downsides.
also only
Great
connives if
card.
you. It also only connives if you discard cards you want. That's the other problem,
Right.
right?
Right.
So a couple of other cards I was thinking about in here. Looking at the protection package, I'm not so certain that it's important that our protection is 1 mana. That's another thing I'm kind of thinking about here. Because Sailor's Bane comes down, if it comes down at the latest on turn 4, which is like almost 95 or more percent of the time, then people are just hitting enough mana to actually be able to counter it, like be able to cast something on it. So it's really when you untap on the next turn where having a cheaper hexproof spell can be nice. But I was thinking some cards that we could play instead would be Mage's Guile and Confound, right? 2 cards that also target our opponent's stuff because these protection spells don't feel good when they can't target our opponent's stuff, right? So something like Mizium Skin could come out. You see a guard approach can tap things, which I think I really like. So then the question is Mage's Guile or Confound? What do you think? I guess Confound is better, right? It targets our opponent's stuff and it draws a card.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the cycling ability is nice, but I think Confound is just a much stronger spell. Yeah.
Good. We're making great progress here. This is good stuff, chat. You're getting the absolute juice right now. This is like taking all of the live streams and distilling it down into that. What are these last 6 cards? And that's really what separates the wheat from the chaff when it comes to this stuff. Is like having really really in-depth discussions about what goes and what stays. So Hands of Binding is the next one we're talking about. What will we just go up on removal and cut something else? Like what's our next slot? We've got 2 more counter spells now, so we're up to 16. That's quite a lot, right? 16 counter spells, 5 protection spells is literally like 21 cards out of our deck. So we could probably cut some of this, like maybe Miscalculation, because we brought in Confound.
Yeah, I'm looking through your I think Miscalculation could go because it's the law of diminishing returns there. That's going to be a tricky one. Trust me, I love that kind of effect, but I like it more on a card like Days.
Yeah.
So that said, the thing to always keep in mind is that taxes are good here because you're already taxing them with the ward effect.
Yeah.
And then you add an additional tax onto that.
But with aggression, they've got a lot of mana, right? Doesn't help against
exactly.
that.
Honestly, you're playing a more efficient version with Spell Pierce. I would stick with the Spell Pierce.
Yep.
And you have foil. I'm sorry, not foil. Days.
And foil.
So yeah. I think you're probably set with that. You could probably cut Miscalculation. 16 counter spells is quite a lot. That's more than I'm running an Avalanche Caller.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be. I think you building your game plan. It's important that you're stopping your opponent's game plans for sure, but also making sure you're consistently hitting your game plan is also important.
What do you think about cutting a land for Mental Journey? I feel like it's we're starting to get into that territory where it's like we're cutting pretty low. But again, this deck mulligans aggressively. You are looking for 1 to 2 lands. If you have 1 land and you have a Ponder or a Preordain or a Portent, you are going to hit your second land drop almost always. Like it's very consistent. And so something like Mental Journey being a card that like is a ritual, right? It's like actively increasing your predisposition to getting Sailor's Bane while also having a 6 mana instant speed draw 3 is not bad. Like I definitely have had games where I'm like in the late game, I'd really like a refuel, and there's not a ton of refuel. I mean, there are, right? We've got Lorien Reveal, Deep Analysis, Behold the Multiverse. Um, we've got cards like Treasure Cruise. We have cards like Gush, but again, it's not Hieroglyphic Illumination too. So I think Mental Journey wants to be in here, and we're going to cut a land again. And this might look psychotic, but truly, like the math on Xerox decks is exactly this. Like this is exactly what we want to be doing, right? And this is a great card in Avalanche Caller too, huh?
Yeah, I do. I'm not sure if Mental Journey is still in there. It's definitely one. It might be one that I've like put in, taken out, put back in. It's a great one. I think
Real quick
probably
here,
now.
Nicholas, glad to have you in the chat. He says he just finished 750 squats and needs to sleep. Holy shit. Give some muscle emojis in chat for Nicholas for never skipping leg day. Good shit, buddy. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll look forward to playing some games with you soon. And yeah, I hope you get to try the deck out. Sorry, continue your thought, Brownie. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, in Avalanche Caller, I definitely like getting the land cycling. I definitely have to do an update on that as well, since Lord of the Rings and the new cycling that we have. I think you probably could. It's definitely worth trying, and then goldfish it and see what you get.
Yeah, for sure. What about Tidal Terror? This is actually might be
Yeah,
better. That might be better than Mental Journey, right?
yeah.
It's not feeding
I
our
mean,
instants and sorceries, right?
no, it's not feeding the instants and sorceries under the game plan. But that said, you might find yourself in situations where you just want to hard cast this so that you're holding off some aggro.
Yeah,
So that's always going to be the back and forth you're going to have. How much do I want to lean into getting permanents into play that are going to stop aggro? Um, and I mean that's really a broader discussion about what Mono Blue wants to do in this format. Obviously, aggro is gonna. I was talking with somebody about this today. Aggro is going to beat down Mono Blue. That's what it's going to do.
yeah,
It's how it's
yep,
always been. It's a battle as old as Magic. Similar to how very often when I make mono white decks, people will say, "Well, it dies to a sweeper. All your stuff is 2 bucks. It dies to a sweeper." It's like, you know what?
no
Yes,
shit,
there's like
no
there's
surprise.
like 5 or 6 cards. They're usually in Rakdos. They're
Yep,
they're going to destroy my board.
yeah.
Hopefully, I have the answer in hand.
Pestilence is a thing.
So
Crypt Rats is a thing. Like,
exactly. So it becomes that balance of to what extent do you want to gear the deck toward dealing with aggro, and to what extent do you want to feed your own game plan.
yeah,
So really,
totally.
I don't think you're in a bad situation with whichever one you pick. If it were me, probably because I like creature dense decks, I'd probably keep in the Title Terror. But
Yep, I'm
I
gonna
don't think
keep
you're
that
wrong to
one.
cut it.
Yeah, Tidal Terror is really important. Again, like a durable 1 mana 5/5 that has ward is really important. And I think that was a card that it's actually mostly defensive, which is funny, right? Like, because Tidal Terror everywhere else is an aggressive card. And you're deploying this on turn 2, turn 3, in 60 card decks, right? In this deck, it's mainly just like a 1 mana, like on turn 4, you like slam your Sailor's Bane and this thing and just go, right? Like, here's my 12 power rar, like it's definitely
Exactly.
strong. What do you think about Veil of Secrecy?
Oh, let me take a look at that. I actually don't know this card.
Yeah,
Talk
it's
to me about it.
unblockable and shroud. Seems very
Hmm.
nice and modal in this deck.
Oh, so it's a modal? Yeah. I
It's
think
not
I think this
modal,
came
it's
up.
actually both, right?
Oh, I see. Yep.
And it actually
Um,
targets any creature. Wow. I mean,
Interesting.
there's a possibility that our protection just wants to be stuff that also hits our opponent's things.
Yep. So when again going back to my mono white decks, that's what I do all the time. So most of the time, the protection that I built into the deck also answers what my opponents want to do. I mean, so stave off is like a perfect example of that, right? So yeah, this is pretty good.
So then, if we're
Do you have any
presuming,
other arcane spells that you play?
not
Because
really.
that arcane net there could actually be really good for like recycling like a Seagate Oracle ETB.
I don't think I have any other arcane spells.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately. Um, Yeah, it's mainly just like dual duty as both, you know, a counterspell and um, yeah. But it
And
seems
that's truly what it is. Giving one of your opponent's creatures Shroud is essentially a counterspell in this format. I mean, it's going to deal with Freed from the Real. It's going to deal with Malcolm lines that are going to try to turn a Reckless Fire Weaver into a pirate. It's going to stop Dargo from being able to drop a double strike spell. So it's going to have
I
multiple
mean, you could
different
make a
effects.
Dargo kill somebody else, right? Like, you know,
Right.
there's ways that these sorts of effects are potentially synergistic, and I don't know that it's necessarily always correct for people to you know, focus down this deck without communicating with the Sailor's Bane player first. But sometimes people get kind of spooked, and you can get these weird suicide pacts where there's like, you know, somebody's like, I'm going to start attacking you. And you're like, I need to kill you now. Because if you're signaling that that's what you're going to do, like, you're going to need to die first. And I'm going to hold up my counter spells for the combo players. Um, and so, generally speaking, a Sailor's Bane wants to be going at the combo players and then, you know, try to get itself into a 2v1 or a 1v1 kind of a situation where things start to, you know, shake out that way. So, um, yeah, so Veil of Secrecy can be modal in that way for targeting your opponent's stuff. You know, maybe help them get the initiative so that they can cross over into, you know, trap and hit somebody with the trap. But mostly it's going to be Sailor's Bane, Unblockable, and Shroud, right? I don't like using protection spells, you know, proactively because it just invites a 2-for-1. But this deck also, like, it's very hard to target the Sailor's Bane. It's very hard to target it, you know, and do anything else during your turn. Most people
Yeah,
don't want to tap
that
out.
really is the advantage.
Yeah.
People would have to do land go to try to interact with the Sailor's Bane. And are they going to do that? If they're doing that, it probably means that they think Sailor's Bane is coming at them, and so then that becomes a table politics issue.
Okay. So if we bring in Veil of Secrecy, what comes out? Because
Since your play patterns are, you've already cut quite a bit of protection.
I mean, it could be another
I'm wondering,
counterspell, right?
right?
Like, what am I finding with Muddle the Mixture? Like, say,
It's going to find.
like command
I mean,
performance, maybe like unblockability, like a
yeah,
bounce spell. It's not amazing.
no, and then you have it in hand, so it's not going to be like super. You have it in hand and it's been revealed, and it's not going to be like
Yeah.
super surprising.
Yeah, let's
Um,
cut we're gonna cut Muddle the Mixture. Veil of
yep.
Secrecy is a counter spell as well, so I'm gonna bring it in there. Um, okay. By the way, our count right now is 60 instants and sorceries. We've gone from like 54. We've added 6 of them now, which is amazing, amazing. And the cool thing too, by the way, I noticed you can hit Mental Journey and Lorien Revealed off of Augur of Bolus, which is really nice if you actually want to hit land drops, right?
Yeah, that's really good.
Okay. And then the other cards that we still wanted in the deck are Haunted Cloak, Brass Knuckles, and potentially Rush of Knowledge. I feel like Rush of Knowledge would have to come at the cost of another big draw spell. Maybe like we'd play Rush of Knowledge over something like Behold the Multiverse. You know, Behold the
Oh,
Multiverse. You know, forecast on turn 2 isn't amazing. I will admit.
right.
You know, we don't bet. I
Um,
mean, if we're doing like turn 1 Thought Scour and then turn 2, you know, say Thought Scour hits 2 instants and sorceries, and that's 3 in the yard. Foretell on turn 2, cast it on turn 3. That's only 4 instants and sorceries in graveyard, which means that the turn 4 we would have to cast something like Compelling Argument or Strategic Planning or Frantic Search into something else or Foresight. Um, or maybe another cantrip plus, you know, maybe careful study or something along those lines. Um, it's a little bit funky that way. So Behold could come out for Rush of Knowledge. Um,
and
just because
I'm
it's like
looking.
the ceiling on it is absolutely
Right.
disgusting, right? Yeah, let's just do that. I
You,
think that's a fine cut.
yeah, and you have a lot of the like the little what I call like the little blue draw spells versus the big blue.
Yeah.
You know, you could also cut one of these, but it just depends on how you want to sculpt your hand and how much you want to be putting into the graveyard. Obviously,
Right.
those, like you said, those are like rituals. Um, Looking through these, careful
Ooh.
study seems good. Uh,
I just remembered a Moment of Truth. That's the new card that got printed recently, right?
yes, yep, it's
That
a
seems
very
like
good
a
one.
card that should be in this deck, right?
Right.
What would it come in for? I mean, there's an
I think
argument that now that we have like the fadeaway and that we actually still have 12 creatures, something like Seagate Oracle.
yeah,
I,
you
I
you could also cut foresight.
okay, so you know what this card does in this deck though?
What?
So Foresight's one of the most busted spells in the deck. You search your library and you find 3 cantrips and you
Hmm.
exile them. And then you draw a
Yep.
card. This is a ramp 4 draw a card on turn 2.
So you're typically trying to exile the cantrips that you're like, I don't need these
Yeah.
little things anymore.
Maybe usually I'll do like one of a couple
Yeah.
things. Sometimes I'll take like my worst counter spell or something. But then the other thing that I'll do too is that when you draw it late, you exile lands. That's where it's really nice. It's the only home for this card in the whole format right now.
Um.
Traditionally, Foresight goes along with like food chain combos in other formats.
Right.
Um, but yeah, Seagate Oracle is not super impressive, right? Like pay 2 more mana and you get Lorien revealed. Pay 1 more mana, you get Deep Analysis. Pay 3 more mana, you get Mental Journey. Pay 2 more, you get Rush of Knowledge. Like it feels like it's a bad draw spell on a body. I think we're gonna cut Seagate. I like the bodies, but now we have downsize and we have fade away, and we haven't even brought in the other one, which was the hampering snare, right?
Is
The
portent for you?
what's that?
Does portent do enough for you?
I like portent.
Okay.
If you're casting it and you still haven't hit your land drop, it's sad. It feels bad.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but it is like another copy of Ponder, which allows you to keep 1 land or
Right.
hands.
Right.
Um, and so I
That's
think
why
that
I was looking at it like portent, like ponder's just sort of an upshifted portent.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
I'm just wondering if any of these little ones can possibly go, so you can put in some bigger draw, because that's the thing. If you're having like just a ton of the little draw, then when you want gas late game, you might not be able to refill your hand as well.
yeah.
Um,
Oh, here, you know what I need to do too is I need to take Merchant Scroll and put that under draw spells because Merchant Scroll
yeah,
can find Mental Journey now, and it can also
yeah.
find. Oh, that was the other card. That's why I had Behold, because sometimes I would search up Behold the Multiverse because it's an instant, right? So we don't have that anymore. Um, but I think that at 4 mana, it's just too pricey. And we can still find Gush. We can still find Gush with that one. So I think that's probably fine. Okay, so we're at 99. Um, so it could be Moment of Truth seems like a good one. That one could replace something else because Moment of Truth is 1 in your hand, 1 on top, and 1 at the bottom. So it's always going to be 2. It often will be 2 instants in the graveyard. Hmm. Ironically, the just a fun fact with this deck, one of the most common things I find with Merchant Scroll is actually Otherworldly Gaze.
Actually, that makes Otherworldly Gaze is very good.
Yeah, this card is
Could
nuts.
Moment of Truth come in for Curate?
Potentially, although Curate can mill 2 into the yard and draw a card, which is the same thing,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yep.
That's possible. Yeah. Um, although a lot of times that would be like a 3 at the top, right? Because you would mill 2 instants, draw a new card, but a lot of times you want one of those cards, right?
Right.
So it's not actually reading that way. Um, we just have room for Moment of Truth. So let's just bring it in. It's no cost to us. It takes us up to 100. So let's do that. 31. I mean, now we're at 61 instants and sorceries. It's crazy. Super high number. And the cards that we still want to make room for, and maybe this is where the Moment of Truth doesn't make the cut, but I don't know. I guess strategic planning is kind of like a worse version of Moment of Truth, right?
Yeah, I was actually it's the next one I was looking at. It sort of is. I love the card, but they just keep printing better stuff.
Yeah, totally. Deep analysis is another one I'm looking at, to be quite honest. Deep
Yeah,
analysis is frequently, because of the amount of milling we do, draw 2 for 2 mana. But the problem
right,
is 3 life, 10% of our life total.
right.
It
And you're not attempting to loop this in any way. So, is it going to do as much for you? I don't know. That's
I
another one you
just
could.
I mean, I don't play Gataxian Probe for the same reason. I
Right.
fundamentally think that Gataxian Probe is a card that most combo decks can't afford to play, and the knowledge that you get on turns where you know early turns is not that useful usually. And so I
See that?
think that deep analysis could come out, given that we have now added mental journey, rush of knowledge, Lorien revealed. I think we can cut this. I think
Yeah.
deep analysis is fine to come out. So now the cards we want are oh okay. What about Tygam Strike? +2/+0 unblockable rebound. So it actually stores itself in exile too.
Yeah. Pretty good. I mean, it's doing the kind of stuff you want to do here.
Is it better than something like Infiltrator's Mage Mark?
I think it is. I was actually just it's wild. We're
Nice.
looking at the same cards. I was just looking at that. I was like, I think you can get rid of that one
Yeah, yeah. Good. Okay. That's awesome.
because that creatures with defender might actually be relevant. Like it doesn't seem like it, but sometimes somebody's got a wall. Then what?
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Yeah, like a pneumatic wall or an academy wall, or I mean, there's a decent number of walls that people play. Um, so that might not be actually good enough. Okay, so now we're at 99. And I think the cards that we were talking about next are Hampering Snare. Oh, I forgot to mention Martyr of Frost. What do you think about this one?
Murder
Just
of
it's
Frost.
a 1 mana 1/1 human wizard. Pay 2, reveal X blue cards from your hand. Sacrifice it. Counter target spell unless its controller pays X.
Like that.
Yeah, like blocker, onboard, like stacks effect, if you will, right?
Yep. Very good.
So could that replace one of the other counter spells?
It
I
could
like
because yeah, you could throw this under the bus when you need to. I mean, and that is something you could. Yeah, I guess it depends on to what extent you want to lean into counter spells that can synergize well with Sailor's Bane, like attempts to try to interact with Sailor's Bane. So, you could. There's the disruptive Path Mage, I think it's called,
hmm
and those are like the little dudes who like you tap and counter target spell unless its controller pays one. Um, Stuff like that. Those could be good here, but again, they're less good as attacks if it's just your opponent is attempting to combo or something.
Oh,
Um,
disruptive pit mage. Yeah, and
that
then
yeah,
disruptive student being the other version of it.
that's what it is. Yep,
Oh my god, wait a second. Wow, there's a bunch of these. Hydromorph Guardian is another one?
yep. There's other ones that like Wizard's Replica. I think it is. It's like pay a blue
Yep.
sack and counter target spell.
Yeah, those are good too. Um, huh. Yeah, these like on-board cards are quite interesting. Voldalian Mage as well is the same thing.
Yep,
Taxing for
yep,
one um, is great for us because it's like a day's on
yep.
board with our Sailor's Bane that we don't need to pay. Well, let's see, some of them you need to pay for. You don't need to pay for Disruptive Pit Mage or Student, but you do need to pay for the Voldalian Mage. So you probably wouldn't play that. But then you've got, yeah, Wizard Replica is really one of the better ones, right? And it's a spell pierce that hits anything, which is great. And it's a blocker. It's just that it's 3 mana.
It's 3 mana and then it's 1 to activate. So you do get flying out of it as well. It's not going to die to a sweeper.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, it's a matter of how much you want to lean into those effects. Do those, you know, do those add to the game plan or not? Or would you rather just have the instants and sorceries in the graveyard that are discounting Sailor's Bane to get cast again?
Right. And then the other question is, do we need more counter spells? And I think at 15, with many of these actually, with many of our 15 of them, and then we have 9 removal spells, I think we're actually really like, we're looking like a classic mono blue tempo deck, or like aggro control is kind of one of the other weird names for it. But like, yeah, we have a lot of interaction, and we don't have to worry about threats. So our interaction is all, you know, we just get to play a lot of it, right? So I think that the card that I would rather have in that slot is actually Hampering Snare. It's just another card we can cycle while also being a fog. So O creatures, O minus, O end. So of turn, I guess, would be, and then type instant is kind of what we're looking for. Creatures your opponents control get. Oh, so there actually are a lot more fogs in blue. I didn't realize that. Oh my god, Lethargy Trap. Wow. Spicy Biscuit. If 3 or more creatures are attacking, you can pay 1.
Yep.
And then there's Hysterical Blindness, which is 3 mana, -4, -0. Hampering Snare has the advantage of cycling, which is quite nice. Turn the Tide is a worse Hampering Snare. Uncomfortable Chill is a Hampering Snare for 1 more mana that also just draws a card. Because I feel like what this is nice for is that like our opponent swings big on us after we are unable to convince them to do otherwise. And then we cast one of these, and then next turn, when it comes back around, we're like, I'm going to hit you if you're going to hit me again next turn, and then I'm going to win, right? Because I'm going to hit you once, you won't be able to kill me, and then I'll hit you again. And I'm going to hold up counter spells the whole time for anything that's happening elsewhere. So it becomes kind of a politicking tool in a sense for navigating the next combat. So is it Lethargy Trap, do you think? Or Hampering Snare? Is -2, -0 good enough, I guess, is part of the question.
Lethargy Trap.
Like, we're worried about flooding the board. We're worried about people who just swing in with a bunch of shit, right?
Lethargy Trap is better if you're. It's good to deal with Gut. It's good to deal with Battlecry Goblin. It's good to deal with.
Oh my god, could you imagine like a
Number?
Or like a Zada?
Yep, Zada. It could be good. Those Zada's tends to like when Zada's ready to do the Zada thing, you're usually dead.
We're not worried about Zada. We destroy Zada. This deck absolutely throttles Zada.
Right. I would say Lethargy Trap is worth trying, because I think the Hampering Snare is probably, I like the cycling on it, but I don't know that it's going to do as much. Yeah, I think you're going to be putting enough in the yard. I think you're going to get a lot more value off of Lethargy Trap, and you know the floor is you just cast it for 4.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like even at that, like, we're still probably fine with it if it means that we don't die, right? Okay, so now we're back to 100 again. I love that it's 1 mana. That's so strong, right? Just 1 mana is so cheap for us. Okay, and then the next one's, let's talk about Brass Knuckles. What are your thoughts with Brass Knuckles? Is this like too much mana. It's the kind of card that's telegraphed. We play it, we're not going to be able to equip it. It's 6 mana to give our creature 5 mana at best. If we already have a Bone Splitter on there, giving it double strike is lethal, and that means it would be 4 and then 1. We don't have a lot of other equipment, so it's mostly 4 and then 2 on the next turn, right?
Right. It's gonna be 2. It's gonna be 2 to equip. I don't know that. Yeah, I mean, it's a strong play, but it might also be a bit of a win more play. You know, Sailor's Bane hitting. If you can get the like minor buffs that you have in a bunch of cards here, just like the 1 or the 2, right? That might be all you need to be able to close the game. It's hard to say though. I think it's worth trying to see what you get. I would say if you're going to do that, you definitely don't want to be cutting any other equipments because it may be relevant that you keep that Bone Splitter.
And we might want both.
Yeah.
I mean, with Haunted Cloak and Brass Knuckles, then we're actually looking at some synergy there, where if you have both of them, it's only 1 to equip it, and then you have Trample, Double Strike, Vigilance, Haste. It's pretty gross. It's pretty gross. Like, Haunted Cloak, I think, wants to be in the deck. And if we were to cut something, it would almost certainly be like a counter spell and maybe a draw. Like, hey, what's up, Thanatos? Good to have you here, buddy.
I cut one of your smaller cantrips. You have 30 draw from what I'm reading. You could definitely cut a smaller cantrip. Maybe that's where strategic planning finally sees its end.
Yeah. For sure. Strategic planning is 3 mana, dig 3, get 1.
Another thing to consider is whether or not, in your opinion, Sapphire Charm is doing enough. I don't get me wrong. I think it's a great card. But if you're going to be doing more of the shrink effects and the sweepers, is it still relevant to phase out the 1 creature? Is it still relevant? You pulled a little bit away from flying. Is it still relevant to have the flying there? Draw a card at the beginning of the next upkeep. Okay. It discounts.
Yeah. It's a highly modal spell that it checks 3 boxes.
Right.
But and it is instant and it is only 1 mana. I think I'd be hard pressed to cut it, even though each of the individual effects is not phenomenal. Like, I think phasing is probably good. I've used Sapphire Charm on a couple of occasions. It does do some work. So I don't know if it would be that one. It'd probably be something less efficient, like the strategic planning, right? So strategic planning is a sorcery speed curate. It's a sorcery speed, like it's like less good than consider.
And maybe that's a criteria to check. Some of the sorcery speed stuff could maybe get cut. Even obviously, I think it's great. Sorcery speed, high value spells are good. But like we were doing with Avalanche Caller, sometimes it's better to be able to do some of this stuff at instant speed so that you can just keep mana up on your opponent's turns.
Yep.
So that they're like a little bit spooked, like, how are we going to interact with this?
Yeah, I agree. So Brass Knuckles is going to come in for strategic planning. And then the last one that we wanted really bad was Haunted Cloak. And I think that's a really good one. Yeah, and then honestly, Martyr of Frost is up there too. I think Martyr of Frost, because Martyr of Frost, when they just use it, when Martyr of Frost, like when they're targeting our thing, there's no question we're going to just be able to just reveal as much as we need to blow them out. So it kind of reads like, you're not going to kill my commander.
Right.
But for other people, it's like they cast Freed from the Real or they cast Ghostly Flicker, and it's like, well, how many cards do I have? Like, and it's like, you can't counter that effect, right? So Martyr Frost is kind of uncounterable, actually, in a lot of ways.
Yep.
Martyr Frost is gas. Huh. I just lost to this card, so...
Well, and the thing is, one of the reasons I like, here's something that I don't talk much about. I'm actually fiddling around with Quasar, Augur of
Oh, great.
Agonies.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and one of the things that I look at in that is control that is based in like permanence, like on the battlefield, right? And
Big fan.
because and that's the thing is because take a very simple spell like some of the seals that we have. Like I have like the seal of cleansing in a bunch of decks, which is just like a disenchant. I have it there for things like when Gretchen goes for Freed from the Real, or when we're seeing land enchantments drop down.
Yep.
Um, the thing is when I cast that, are you really going to counter it? It's just going to hang out on turn two. Like, are you really that concerned?
Yeah, it's
So it's not. It becomes not a stack war. It becomes something that's a problem later.
yeah.
And so
Very
when you
few
can get
answers to a seal of cleansing. In fact,
right,
there's like
so
one. It's like Tamio's safekeeping or bust.
right,
Like,
exactly. You would need something with hexproof shroud, whatever.
yeah.
So those are kind of some of the things that I look at. So I would say getting that in there is good if you can, cut one counter spell. Uh, you said you were at 60 instants and sorceries. I mean, if you're at 59, it's still not bad.
Oh no, no.
So
I mean, we're all in the gravy here, dude. We've increased the number of instants and sorceries by like 15%.
yeah,
We're totally good. So I could cut. Now we haven't talked about creatures. Like I could
right.
potentially cut something like Jeering Homunculus because it is a creature, right? So it's another creature, um, and it's going to be a counter spell as well. The Jeering Homunculus is a one and done, right? But it is a big butt. It's a big butt. Um,
Quality of the creatures you have here are so good.
I know.
It's hard to find one to get rid of.
Well, I
And that's
mean,
the thing. Like, so of the ones you have here, the one that's, I mean, the one that's
Cancerix kind of like this does read that you are going to play your commander on turn three,
yeah. The
probably.
and Merfolk's Secret Keeper is just so it's just
Oh,
very
cracked.
very efficient.
Yeah, cracked.
Um,
So then the other question would be because there's these ones here, but I just remembered there's another one, dude. Oh my god. Instant or sorcery, draw, CMC equals 3. This is the new Academy wall that just got printed. Or sorry, downshifted. Yeah, Windrider Wizard, right? This should be in the deck too. And it also triggers off of wizards.
so that's your looter. That's the
Yeah,
looter you want.
that's the looter we want for sure. There's no chance in hell we leave home without that, right? Because Academy Wall is the same reason, right? Thanatos says one
Yep.
of the draw then scry spells. I never like Portent. It always feels bad. Yeah, yeah, Portent. I mean, I feel like Portent occupies an important place here, though. And actually, let's get our mana costs correct here because really some of these spells are actually they're reading different than they actually are. So like for example, compelling argument is a cycle for one, right? Or it is a 2 mana mill, and we're happy with either one of those. If Fara's dispersal here, also this is going to be mostly 1 mana for attacking creatures, but we can pay 3 to mill. Like this deck actually does a lot of this weird game plan where you go like turn 2 Winds of Rebuke on your opponent's mana rock, right? Because you want to mill cards into the graveyard, right? So if Fara's dispersal could be the same thing, right? Turn 3, hold it up, bounce their untapper, scry some cards into the or surveil into the graveyard. But we definitely want this Windrider Wizard. Trinket Mage is a wizard. Bolus is a wizard. Secret Keeper is a wizard. So we have a couple of other wizards in the deck. If we brought in Martyr of Frost, that's also a wizard. I feel like we want this, right? Like this Martyr card is so stupid in mono blue decks, right?
And I mean, I think one of the things, as I'm thinking through the card more, I mean, one of the things that it's going to represent is it essentially does give Sailor's Bane hexproof. Because at the end of the day, they're going to look at this and they're going to go, so you can just sack this thing at any time.
Yeah.
and it's just, I'm not going to have the mana to pay.
No,
So
and they're going to be tapped out. They're going to be tapped out.
Yeah.
So what that actually, so we have to remember cards, we've talked about this before, but cards do more than they read sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So like Gollum, for example, reads, "Don't attack me because nobody wants to help you tempt." But it also reads, "Don't block and kill it because you don't want to help me tempt." So it's kind of like a 2 mana 3/1 unblockable moments piece. It's like a lot of different things, right? And so I think the Martyr of Frost reads, "I'm not going to discard my card and tap myself out for the turn," which is going to mean that if Martyr and Frost is in play, then our Sailor's Bane doesn't die. Winfro mentioned Wizard Cycling to find Martyr Frost and Merfolk Secret Keeper. Actually, though,
is that is strong because the Wizard Cycling. Yep, it's going to give you your discounted Sailor's Bane. Yeah, it'll get you what Augur Bolus. It'll get you Merfolk. It'll get you Trinket Mage. It'll get you Wind Rider Wizard. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, you could see a world where you go Wizard Cycle, turn 1, some cantrip, maybe otherworldly gaze. You go turn 2, tutor up Merfolk Secret Keeper at end step. Turn 3, you use what is it? Venture Deeper, and then cast your Sailor's Bane.
Yep. Pretty much.
Well, what are the Wizard Cycling cards we have? We have Step Through.
Yep. Is that the only one? Do we have another Wizard Cycler?
There's Vidalcan Aether Mage.
Oh,
this one is
the Aether Mage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not very good, and it's not a. So our card is Step Through, and
Yep.
Step Through is not phenomenal. Right? I mean, how hot are we on this?
I think Step Through is pretty good. I think you could play it.
Interesting.
Because the other way to look at it is return 2 creatures to their owner's hands. If you let's say you had to let's say I don't need wizards anymore, right? You could just hard cast this thing for 5 late in the game. Chances are, if you're in the late game against Gut, maybe Gut's lost a couple tokens, or maybe you're late game against a mid-range deck. Pick one. Returning 2 creatures might just make Sailor's Bane unblockable.
Yeah. There's another wizard spell. It's Tribal.
Oh, yeah.
If you control a wizard, though, you have to control a wizard to get the value off of it, which is sad. Are there any other...
Stream of Unconscious, yeah.
And then Wings of Elisvel is not where we want to be. So there's no other things we can get with that, really, that we would super want. But we do, I mean, we get a counter spell. So when I play a tutor in a deck that isn't comboing, oftentimes it's because it has coverage for all the things I care about, right? So it has a tutor for Martyr of Frost, so counter spell, ramp through Secret Keeper, Augur of Bolus for draw and a body, and then Trinket Mage for removal because you can find Aether Spellbomb. You can also find Bone Splitter.
Yep.
There's... I think we also have a land here too. Seat of the Synod, so you can find a land. That actually does seem pretty good. But what would we cut for that? Would it be something like... It feels like it would be a 10th removal spell, but that we would cut something else for it because it is so many different things, right? Step Through. And we still have some cuts to make as well, so we have to keep that in mind.
Right.
Like, I don't really want to cut Boomerang, Echoing Truth, Force Away. Force Away is really good. Like, the loot on a bounce. Hands of Binding is really sick.
It needs to go, though. I mean, maybe that's the one.
I mean, so in terms of combo creatures, this doesn't stop a Freed from the Real, right? So they cast Freed from the Real on their iced creature and they untap it.
Right.
So this is an anti-aggro tool.
Yes, most of the time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that does enough.
one of the decks that I've had good success against is Arami, and we might see Arami coming up more often. I've heard some folks are brewing it, but I don't know that we need a meta game for it yet.
No, not just yet. Maybe someday soon. I actually need to drop Lorien revealed under tutors as well. Okay, so let's put step through in for removal. It is very expensive, so I'm not even sure when we actually cast this. It's like, but we're swapping it out for Hands of Binding. So there might actually be a world too where we want, because we have protection and counters, where we actually want to go down on counters and up on removal.
Yeah.
So would it be something like Mana Leak?
Yeah, Mana Leak I think is one that could go.
And we have Martyr of Frost in there, so there's that.
Yeah, because that'll act like another one. Yeah, definitely not. There's somewhere I'm like absolutely not like Logic Knot is definitely gonna stay, right? And
yeah,
Spell Rupture is awesome.
Yeah, Spell Rupture fucks in this deck.
Yeah, I think Mana Leak could go. Yep. I think that of the ones that you have there, it's probably one of
also
the
Dispersal Shield. That card is hilarious.
Yeah, yes.
Counter anything. Counter it all.
Yes. Let's see.
I mean, there's
I think Mana Leak is the one here. Mana Leak seems like the good one.
Okay, and then in terms of protection, we have Shore Up, but I think Shore Up's pretty damn good. There's a Guard Approach.
Yeah.
It just feels like one of the things that with 10, if we have to cut one more card. We still don't have Haunted Cloak, and we still don't have Haunted Cloak. Let's talk about command performance and the stickers for a second here. Let's just make sure that
you're all stickers are where you lose me. I have never been able to grok stickers.
Yeah, no, I get you. And you're not the first person. I've definitely had a lot of conversations with people who are like, "I'm sorry, Papa, I get it. I don't care. I don't want it." But we have to look at what they do in the deck. Double Prowess. That's a potential one-shot kill. Whenever this creature attacks, untap target permanent. That's Vigilance. 2 mana for Fire Breathing. If it has unblockability or of any sort, we can pump it up. Usually just once, right? Because we've already hit them, and so we get that, that Fire Breathing effect. Lifelink.
Yep. I'll keep you in the game.
Menace, not that good, but again, Menace is like all of these are pretty decent. Menace is probably the worst. This one is +1, -1 until end of turn. Not phenomenal, but like not awful. If we have unblockability, we have a way to pump the power. Vigilance, double Exalted. So that's another +2/+2, which is really important. And then whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Same thing. All these cards lead to a 2-shot kill, right? For the most part. And then target creature can't block this turn, which is better when we add flying. But command performance seems pretty good. It's doing a lot of the things we care about. Vigilance is huge. Being able to attack and block every turn really it decreases the urgency a lot. I would love to have Seal of Removal in this deck too. Holy crap.
Yes. Looking through, man. Yeah, these last few cuts are going to be tough. I don't think you can cut any more lands.
It's got to be draw, right?
Yeah, I think it's got to. Your draw is
30.
really deep.
It's so deep.
Yeah,
it's so big.
There's a lot.
Yeah, it's huge.
And at a certain point, you might want to be. You're gonna, once you have the Sailor's Bane plan online, you're not going to be wanting to do necessarily a ton of little draw. So
yeah, Portent is kind of looking like it. Thanatos just keeps saying Portent in chat, and I think he's probably right.
I think so.
It just
I'd
feel.
cons- I
I mean,
I'd consider that one. I would consider.
what's the math? Can somebody do a hyper geo for us? We have one, two, three, one, two, three. Well, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. So we have 9 1 mana spells that are card selection, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15 1 mana spells we can just cast. So that's like that what that means is like at 11, you're like the math on that is that with 11 of a card in your deck and no draw, you are going to hit one of those cards in your first like 9 every game.
Yep.
So we're going to have more than one of these probably, over the course of the game. We're definitely going to get a lot of these, right? Because we have so much draw, so much card selection, right? That number is way, way higher. We're like 99%, right? It's like chances are we'll go ponder into a preordain, right? Thanatos says, listen, I understand not wanting to cut it, but it just feels bad a lot of the time since it's sorcery and doesn't draw right away. Yeah, like the sad thing about Portent is that it doesn't get it to you on your turn. It's going to get it to you on your next. So when it's any card other than our opening hand, it feels bad. That's a bad ingredient for a card, right? Anything. There are a lot of cards that suck in your opening hand, but they're great for the rest of it. Well, the math is like most of the time cards aren't in your opening hand. So Portent's got to go.
There's a few here that I'm looking at. Like, let's say you take an opening hand that has for example, something like a Sleight of Hand or a Serum Visions, but you also have an Otherworldly Gaze. Which one are you going to cast?
Otherworldly Gaze.
Exactly. So I think the sorcery speed does matter here because then they're really only feeling good in that first turn.
Yeah.
And Serum Visions and Sleight of Hand are great draw spells, but typically for combo decks who are trying to combo before turn 6, right? And I think that's where those shine the most because they're gonna try to make sure that whatever they're drawing into is gonna be either the tutor for the combo or the combo itself.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Serum Visions and Sleight of Hand are looking less good compared to some of the other stuff you hear that it's just like 1 mana, dump some stuff in the yard and draw a card.
Yeah. Now Sleight of Hand does Sleight of Hand I feel like is better than Portent in a way because you're still getting that card right away. So later on you can find a card you need and use it right away, which is big. And then Thanatos says that's why I said the draw scries. Yeah, so Serum Visions is another one. So here's the thing. The reason I have those cards in the deck is for replicate effects, right? We just like it's nice to be able to have a lot of things to do on one, and I really don't want to neuter our ability to do stuff on one. Another way we could do it is we could cut Iceberg Cancerix since we have gone up on creatures quite a bit. Like this is probably the next weakest card, right? This is not card advantage. It's not card selection. It's just a butt that fuels our yard. This card sucks in the late game. This card's got to go. I'm unilaterally cutting that card. I have the power. Get it out of here. So now we fit in Haunted Cloak, right? Which ironically doesn't fit any of these things. I guess it's kind of like Pump in a way because they can't block now. I don't know. We'll just do it like that. Haunted Cloak. Okay, there we go. And I think we have everything that we're looking for. This is really good. I think we did really well on this. Let's take it through a couple of spins and see how it feels. Okay, so we have a 1 land hand with no cantrip, which feels like punishment for what we just did, cutting all these one mana cards, of course. You have another 1-lander here, but look, this is way different though. We have Merfolk Secret Keeper, we have Sapphire Charm. I think we're going to keep this. We'll draw. Go here. We're going to go immediately into the Sapphire Charm. And we're going to draw and then draw. Okay, we didn't hit what we needed, which is brutal. But I think what that means is we can go 1 mana, Merfolk Secret Keeper, mill. Let's mill all those lands. Nope. Okay, we got, was it mill 4? Yeah, mill 4. So we ramped quite well. Like the crazy thing here is that we just like, even though we didn't hit our land, like sometimes this will happen. You'll keep a 1-lander. We still have, we're very close to casting Sailor's Bane, right? Okay, yep, we discard to hand size. We're actually really close to casting Treasure Cruise. This is like a common thing you'll see, like, you just, so what do we get rid of here? We probably get rid of Stealth Mission. That's the one we're furthest away from. and then we're going to draw. We're going to get our land, and we're going to cast 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, we're going to cast a Treasure Cruise, I think. Yeah, Treasure Cruise. Exile all of this. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And unfortunately, we hit a mental journey is going to be good on the next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can cast Sailor's Bane next turn. So even though that's a turn 5, which is slow, right? We're still like packed up, right? And actually, yeah, yeah. So we're just, and actually we would have had to discard some of these cards, right? Because we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we would have had to discard some cards. Oh, this is actually wasn't this. It was this one here. So we would have. This was our draw for turn. So we would probably discard like. We probably need the Lethargy Trap at this point. We don't need the Frantic Search anymore. And foil is weird because we need a land and we have other counter spells. So we'll draw this for turn, cast Sailor's Bane. This is a slow Sailor's Bane. It's only about like 5 or 10% of the time when you cast it this slow, but
you're play testing it, that might be relevant. As good as foil is, looking at the play patterns, you might need to consider that you may not have the land in hand.
oh, yeah. So here, let's do a quick switch then. I think you're totally right. Let's cut foil. And you know what? Actually, a good point. I'm glad that you brought this up because I've actually not had foil in the deck for a long time. So foil, the problem with it is exactly that. It's massive card disadvantage for one thing, and we're land light. So we don't often want to hold lands for it because we want to play them out, right?
Yeah. The discarding, is good because it acts as a ritual for Sailor's Bane, right? I think it's the land that's going to be the issue for you. Just watching this, and while you're doing it, I'm also kind of doing my own over here and watching, and you don't draw into enough lands where you're going to be able to cast it for that free cost.
Yeah, totally. And we should be very clear too, chat, that this is not a deck for the faint of heart. Like, you need to be a very good Magic player to play this deck because your target priority is hugely important. Your card selection matters every single turn. And also, your mulligans need to be aggressive as fuck, right? Like, there's an element of risk to this. This is like Legacy Delver, okay? Where like Legacy Delver is like unbeatable if you play it right. It's just like so hard to beat. So the counter spells that I was thinking about, we have Unwind is one of them. I don't have Unwind in the deck. I mean,
especially if you're going to be low on land count, to be able to be interactive, it's fantastic. I love that card.
Okay, so let's bring that one in. What do you think about that one versus Force Spike or Disrupt?
Yeah, probably better than Disrupt. Again, the taxes are great, but they're typically better if somebody's trying to hit Sailor's Bane and you're making them tab out.
But they're bad everywhere else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do like the draw. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely Unwind. I think Unwind is going to be devastating in this deck when we're able to counter something and then hold up mana for everybody else. It's going to be a massive tempo play. Okay, so let's try that again. Run it back. This is a disgusting hand. Like, this is very good. So this, we're going to play Spell Bomb. I'm going to draw. We do need to hit our next land drop. And if we don't, actually, this is where we're going to cycle the Spell Bomb to make sure that we do. And we hit it. 1, 2, 3. We're going to cast Frantic Search, or we could actually go Academy Wall. Academy Wall into Frantic Search next turn is going to be a lot of draw. We're also looking again at probably like, part of the thing here, I think we do Academy Wall. Yeah. Academy Wall. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, Frantic Search, trigger, loot. So we're going to probably pitch. We don't know what our stickers are this game. What are our stickers? What do we get? We got Fire Breathing, Double Prowess, and Fire Breathing. These are not good enough for us to keep Command Performance. Okay. I don't know how to get rid of these things, but anyways, these things so we're gonna pitch command performance, and then we're gonna resolve this 1, 2, and we're gonna discard probably, because now we've got our 4th land, we'll probably go Sapphire Charm and geez, 4 counter spells, so we could discard, which is our worst. So like Spell Rupture maybe?
Yeah. The other ones are better.
Okay. And then we're gonna untap 1, 2, 3. And we don't have anything to do with the mana, which is tragic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're 2 away from casting this. So what we're gonna do is to get this to trigger again, we're gonna counter something.
Yep.
Loot Winds of Rebuke. Great. So we can pitch Winds of Rebuke, and now we're there. So now again we're on a turn 5, which we'd want to do better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 7. We're gonna cast the Sailor's Bane. We've got 1 mana up for Dispel. If nobody does anything, end step will go Otherworldly Gaze. And actually, ideally, we would pitch this to the loot, right? So we might not hold. We might hold this to discard to this, and then we're holding Dispel. So if somebody tries to stop us and counter it, then we cast Dispel, loot, discard. Now the funny thing is, like, we don't really want a ton more lands right now, but I think that we're going to be able to loot this away anyways later on. So we go there, and then now these lands are there for Force Away and for Academy Wall. So we go.
Funny, we get rid of foil, and now you're flushing lands.
I know, right? Yeah, this is the way it be sometimes. The Taigem Strike I want to cast, but I also see that we don't have. This is one of the reasons why I haven't liked these cards in the past, is because even though they do exactly what we want, they're so expensive, right? I'd love to just have an Artful Dodge to just like crack in, or a Slip Through Space or something. And they're in the deck. We have tons and tons of these cards in the deck. So let's just say we go, the funny thing is that even if we were to cast this and they were to kill it, we're going to loot when we cast it, and we're going to loot again on our upkeep. So we will be able to cast the Sailor's Bane. So I think this is free. We cast Taigem Strike. Let's just say we don't have that problem. We'll loot. We're going to discard this island. Taigem Strike is going to be here. We're going to swing for 9 on somebody. We'll go to our upkeep. It's going to cast. This is going to be our loot off of Taigem Strike. So I think we can pitch this because we don't need that anymore. And then we draw for turn. And the nice thing is now we have Force Away to pitch this island. So we're going to go 1, 2, cast Augur of Bolas. Look at the top 3. Wow. That's... Fucking hate this card sometimes, dude. It's just classic, like, Augur of Bolas is like, look at the top 3, put him to the bottom. It's not going to take a whole lot for me to cut Augur of Bolas. I'm not high on this card.
I was actually looking at it because of your creatures, as much as it's a good blocker, don't get me wrong, it's like, in terms of feeding the overall game plan that I'm watching you do right now, filling the graveyard, sculpting your hand, it's not doing as much.
Fuck this card. I'm rage cutting it right now. It's gone. I don't even like this card in 60 card. I don't like it. Its day is come and gone. I don't like it. So what do we play instead? Something like Mage's Guile?
One. You can put foil back in and see, and keep goldfishing and seeing, like, do we get the lands? Maybe we do get the lands.
I think I think foil is gone for good. I think foil was always probably wrong for the deck. Let's try Mage's Guile and see how that finds. Tidal Terror is interesting too, because it would just be another way to find a land. Yeah, Winfro says, Augur, you failed me for the last time. Yeah, there's probably some like good anime meme I could drop right now. You failed me for the last time. It's like Darth Vader.
I've watched some really sad fairies player like play Augur of Bolas and just be super sad before.
Dude, Augur of Bolas literally 40% of the time hits nothing. It's it's a real hard ask. I mean, it just so frequently is not a good card. I think so. Tidal Terror would be interesting in the sense that it's like this is another land, right? That's also a creature. We're not often going to cast as a creature, um, but it is just a land, and it is a way to tutor Mystic Sanctuary. Um, oh, you've lost because of it in this deck. Yeah, I mean, we just put Martyr of Frost into our graveyard. We wanted that card. We wanted that shit. It's not okay. So let's just do that. We're gonna throw in the the other thing we could look at as well, and this is a small sample size because really like the mathematics here are disgusting. Like with a quarter of the deck like this, we shouldn't be having trouble with this. This is very atypical. I've run hundreds of hands through this deck, and this is not a problem. And we added more cards that are going to make it more consistent. So we have to be able to look at this and say we just got 2 rounds of bad variants, and we're going to run it back. Okay, so we've got another counterspell heavy hand. We don't keep this. We've got 3 lands. We've got Mental Journey, Echoing Truth, and Mental Note. This is actually pretty good. I think Mental Journey is probably not going to be a land, but we have to remember too, Mental Journey cycling itself is a land, and it's a spell in the graveyard. So we're going to keep this. We're going to go 1 mana Mental Note, and that's great. That's exactly why we play this card. Very sick. Draw. And then now I think we go Island into... We're going to hold on to this to brainstorm it away with... if we ever get Brainstorm, and then we can find it if we want with Trinket Mage. Thanatos says, don't forget we may get more for the deck in Commander's Masters. Oh. Well, Thanatos, what do you think we're going to get for the deck in Commander Masters, and why do you think we're going to get it? I'm curious to hear. Winfro, semi-related, in 60-card Pauper, I've whiffed on a back-to-back Lead the Stampede and Winding Way in a Sliver deck. Sometimes that variance is just outright hostile. Yeah, dude. I mean, or you're the Slivers player I played against, and they go fucking Winding Way for 4, and then Winding Way for 5, and you're just like... Fuck! I kept a hand with 3 removal spells, and it literally doesn't matter. Oh, God. Yeah, variance.
I will share the pain of playing Mono White Heroic and not being able to get Laguna Band Trailblazer until a mulligan to 3. And that was a rough game.
Not okay, right? Like, not good. Right. So we're on
turn... I have 4 of these. I have 4 Sky Guards. Where are they? I don't know.
Yeah. Winfro says we played against the same guy. Couldn't keep him down. Yeah, dude, that Slivers guy ran hotter than the surface of the sun. It was disgusting. I was playing Boros Synth. I had such a good hand. I killed his first 3 creatures, and then he just looks at me, smiles, and casts Lead the Stampede. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, what am I supposed to do? I had 3 Glint Hawks, and I had him on I was just about to kill him. And then he plays his, 4th land. He has Mana Sliver in play. He empties his hand and kills me. Straight kills me from 16, and I was like, what the fuck? It was like he didn't even need that many attackers, right? Anyways, enough raging about that. Okay, so we've got all this shit here. We're running into a bit of a bottleneck here with, too much of this. I mean, we could tap something down, which we'll probably do because we have Shore Up. We'll tap something down at end step, and next turn we will resolve our commander. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, yeah. So cool. And then we go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're gonna cast our commander for the full price. Nobody has stuff for this right now. Thanatos says, I don't know yet, but there's bound to be more downshift cards in blue. Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I guess I'm curious to. It's so one of the things that Gavin Verhey has said is that they're trying not to do downshifts through commander sets. So I think they're watching for that. And again, everything has to be designed around, everything is designed in their mind around draft. So it's pretty random what we get. Draft is the #1 priority. Like, what does the limited environment look like? Because they want it to be fun so that they sell packs and everything. So it's kind of random whether we get something in this, whether it's, it'll be because of draft if we get it. Like there's some cards we didn't get that we should have gotten. Like uncommon Tolerant Sky Summoner. Come on. Come on. It's an uncommon, right, Brownie?
It could be. It's a very well designed card. It's hard to say. Eventually, maybe we see that. I was kind of surprised myself. I thought maybe we'd get Uncommon Tolerant. There was some other stuff
if we
that
did,
I was kind of surprised. You know, and then on the flip side, I was very surprised that Kemba Ka Regent got downshifted. I was like, okay.
I guess we've got this card, right? Like, yeah, Zapalta is another one that's kind of funky. Yeah, let's see. Winfro says, I ate his board with Krark Clan and he just rebuilt. Oh, I hate to hear that. I really don't. That sucks. Sliver player is an absolute hero. Yeah, we had somebody who used to play my Naya Slivers build. I'm pretty bullish on Naya for Slivers because you get the really explosive, like, Heart Sliver haste type stuff, or you have like Gem Hide and Heart Sliver and you go absolutely ballistic on people. Haste, tapping all your stuff, draw for Lead the Stampede, cast 4 more creatures, kill them on the next turn. It plays like a combo deck. Zachary says, I think Piracy Charm can be cut for something. I think you're thinking of not Piracy Charm, but Sapphire Charm. Sapphire Charm is very good. Very, very good. 1 mana, phase something out, 1 mana, flying, 1 mana, draw a card. It's kind of like, it's mid at everything, but it does all the things, right? And I think that's really appealing to me. So, okay, nobody has removal for Sailor's Bane, right? Yeah, right. Cool. So we have lands, and we can always pitch the seat. So I think we do play. Well, maybe we don't. We definitely want to play the 1, 2, 3. We play the Wind Rider Wizard. We're gonna play a land. We're gonna pay 1, and we're gonna give Artful Dodge to Sailor's Bane, and we're gonna loot, and we're gonna loot away this land. And we're going to hit somebody for 7, unblockable. They can't stop us. We can shore up if we need to. We're probably not going to shore up on, well, we're going to consider on end step because people aren't holding mana up, right? So we're going to cast Consider. We're going to loot. This unblockable is nice. We're going to pitch the Seat of the Synod. Then we're going to resolve Consider, and we're going to get this. Also quite nice. We're looking for a power booster right now. So there's a part of me that says we can draw this and get another card with it, or we can just get rid of it and draw a card off of Consider, right? Isn't that the better thing to do? More mana efficient. We have protection already, so let's pitch it, and then we're going to draw a card. Distortion Strike is exactly what we're looking for. Derpy Panda says, are you guys open for a deck tech tonight? Worked on this list for a few hours. Absolutely, Derpy. Any donation of $5 or more will get you to look at us, have us look at your list. I'd be happy to do that for you. You can do a super chat below. And yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to look at it for you. Also, just so you all know, Clay and I are working on a website. And once that website is created, we're going to have an official portal for you all to pay me or Clay to bring you on live stream. Or if you don't want to be on live stream, that's fine. And it's an hour of our time to take a deck of yours and work on it, right? If you want to do a longer one where we want to build it from scratch, that's going to be a different price. But we're going to have rates for that for you all who want to do that. You'll get to come on live stream, be in front of some people. I mean, I think our videos currently get something like 300 views, ish. But yeah, it's a fun thing to do, and you get to be on live stream, and we get to work on the decks, and you get a bunch of people in chat, including Clay, Clay and I, to do that. So yeah, definitely, Derpy, if you're interested, you're welcome to do that. And yeah. So this is great. We're totally tidy for next turn. This is I think, Brownie, this is a pretty damn good sequence, huh? Like,
this is looking very good so far.
Yeah. So I think at this point we just say the person who took the 7 is not going to get hit again, and we're going to start working on somebody else. We go Distortion Strike, dude. This right here with these rebound cards is cracked. Loot.
Rebound's giving you a lot of value here.
Yeah, I think we discard Jeering Homunculus potentially. Although the person who's going to get hit by this isn't going to like this.
Right.
So what do you think? Is it Homunculus?
Then you're getting it. Yeah, it's very board state dependent. So who are you hitting, and can they crack back hard? Is really the question. So of the cards you have in hand, just because we don't really know what board state looks like, the Homunculus probably could go. Because other than that though, yeah. Okay. Everything else that you have in hand is just very strong.
Yeah, totally. And I kind of want to, even though I want to loot and get more value off of this, I think that the Shadow Rift is actually what we want to do after the second cast of Distortion Strike, right? So we just go, somebody may actually target our commander at this point because we are turn 6. Somebody may try and stop us. So let's just say that we need to cast Confound or something, right? Confound will loot. Boomerang is very good. At this point, I'm tempted to say discard Shadow Rift and then just draw off this, right? Off of Confound. Shadow Rift into the graveyard. Then we're going to draw Haunted Cloak. Wow. Very good. Okay, so then we're going to upkeep and we're going to draw. This is our loot off of this. This is a great card right now. Haunted Cloak seems very good because we don't have the unblockable anymore, right? We're going to have it one more turn. So I think Haunted Cloak is good. Boomerang and Echoing Truth. Boomerang is going to be very board dependent. There's a part of me that says now that we have Haunted Cloak, we don't care if our commander dies, so Shore Up isn't that important anymore, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Shore Up, we get...
You're able to get that beast, it's fine.
And we're keeping Dispel, so...
Right.
Although maybe the argument there is that if we've got 2 bounce spells... Actually, no, we keep Shore Up. Because Shore Up is an additional power and vigilance. Yep. And these 2 are also interaction.
Yep. The Trinket Mage can go get your Bone Splitter now, right?
Oh, that's right. Which is ironic. So I think what we do is we want to use this to kill the player that we already have the 8 on. And then what we do is cast Trinket Mage. Trinket Mage does take us out of like bounce and... Or sorry, if we cast Trinket Mage or Haunted Cloak. I think Haunted Cloak is next turn. Because next turn we won't have the unblockable. Trinket Mage, go and find Bone Splitter.
Yep.
Wow, this is looking like a very good game for us, right? Aether Spellbomb if we needed it. And then we just kill somebody, right? Like, yep. I think they're probably just dead here. And then we're going to, let's say we have to interact. We probably do. Say there's a Gretchen. We're casting this. We're bouncing and we're looting. And we're going to pitch the Archaeologist. We don't need that. And then we'll draw for turn. That's a great card to have in the mid game, right? Because now we're down to a 2v1, probably. And let's see here. Make sure we still got you on there. Okay, so we got downsize. So now we're going to go 1, 2, 3, Haunted Cloak. We don't actually care about our commander staying alive now. The only problem is that because we did Trinket Mage, we actually don't have a way to cast and equip Haunted Cloak. But yeah, okay, so we'll go Haunted Cloak and we'll hold up Shore Up.
Yep. And
we just swing, right? Like,
yep.
Hey, what's up, Derpy? There, thank you for the $5. I appreciate it, man. So Derpy, what I want you to do is send me a DM on Discord, and we'll take a look at that deck for you. Thank you for your donation. I really appreciate your support. Thank you. It's always very validating to Clay and I when folks choose to financially support what we're doing, given the time commitment and our passion for what we do here and the great hosts we bring on. I mean, Brownie's a fucking legend in this format right now. So this is kind of cool. The Haunted Cloak is basically saying, like, we don't care about killing you for commander damage right now. Your creatures can't beat us in combat. We're just going to trample over you. We've got vigilance. Next turn we'll play the Bone Splitter, and you're gonna die, right? Like, So during this next turn here, we are kind of shields down. We do have downsize. So for combo, we're kind of in a weird spot, right? Like, maybe there's an argument that we don't do the Haunted Cloak, and then we hold up Echoing Truth.
If you need to balance something, yep.
And then just swing at somebody, probably like eat a blocker, maybe swing at the combo player and like eat their untapper or something. And then we probably have to cast Echoing Truth on something. Loot, opt, probably graveyard.
Yep.
And then we draw for turn. The land is actually not bad here. So 1 mana, equip, 1 to equip.
Yep.
And now we're gonna, dude, why do I keep doing this wrong? So this, yep, like that. Thanatos says, could see Hinder, Dissipate, maybe his Bane's Contingency. Whoa, I don't know any of those cards. I'll have to go check that out. Those are three words that I don't remember on a Magic card. It's not common that happens. So I think what we do now is we do play our land, even though we'd like to have that as looting material, because we're going to cast Downsize. We're going to kill somebody with this. Our final opponent, we're down. Oh, you're saying cards that could be downshifted. Yeah, Brownie, when you find those cards, let me know what comes up there.
Yep, Hinder. Hinder's a three mana counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, put that card on the top or bottom of its owner's library instead of into that player's graveyard.
So like a bad memory lapse?
Yeah, you could choose to send it to the bottom.
Oh, the bottom.
Yeah, so that's good. Bane's Contingency, counter target spell. If that spell targets a commander you control, instead counter that spell, scry 2, then draw a card.
Dude, look at this here. So during on the 1v1, we cast Downsize, we loot into Gush, discarding Shore Up, and now, dude, Gush is fucking gross, right? Like, because we're actually gonna loot away those lands, right? So end step, we just go, dude, so sick. We cast Gush, return these 2 lands, trigger the Moonrise. Dude, this wizard is nuts. This is way better than Academy Wall, because Academy Wall is only once per turn. So we loot away the land, and then we draw 2. Okay, that's awful, but Serpentine Curve is huge. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, we have Artful Dodge in the graveyard. I forgot about that. That's huge.
You keep Serpentine Curve in hand, and they're like thinking Sailor's Bane is the problem, right?
Yeah, watch this.
When you're at this point of the game, I mean that's it. That's pretty much just like you got an answer. If not, GG's.
Well, here's the funny thing: is now we can go 1 mana, swap Haunted Cloak, give it haste. You're dead.
That's it.
You're dead. This is great. I love it. Okay, so turn 11, a little slow. We had a bit of a slow start. We are looking for turn 3, turn 4. We played it on turn 5. Okay, so that says a lot. But again, this was a very safe start. We didn't have to expose ourselves to anything really bad. 3 mana. Okay, basically I can see anything with 3 mana counter. Okay, cool. So let's. We got a message request. There it is. Derpy, perfect. Accept the DM. We're gonna pull up this list. We've got Jury. Awesome. Okay, so let's pull up. Go back to our friend here. There we go. Cool. Okay. So, Derpy Panda, let's take a look at your Jury Master of the Review. This is a commander that people have been toying around with, kind of, alongside Mayhem Devil. It's a 2 mana 1/1. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter. When it dies, deals damage equal to its power to any target. So this card kind of reminds me a little bit of any card that reads more than what it actually says, right? Because this card kind of says unblockable in a lot of ways. It kind of says don't attack me. It's got this Punisher effect that when it dies, right? But it's also something we have control over. We can sacrifice it to Corrupted Conviction, Village Rites, Deadly Dispute, Reckoner's Bargain, even stuff like Vulturous Haven, K-Dead. There's a lot of different ways to do it. So let's see which ones you've got. One thing you can do for me in the future too, Derpy, and for those of you watching, is it's really helpful if you have some sort of forced categories in here, because otherwise it's a little bit hard to see what the balance of effects are. So basically, I'm able to provide better value to you through this process, and we'll get through it this time. It's totally fine, so don't feel bad. But I'm able to provide better value if I can see an organization of effects, kind of like what we have here, where we have basically categories, because I want to see how many draw spells do you have, how many counter spells do you have, right? How many lands do you have, how many, this, that, and the other thing. So, okay, let's take a look here. Let's start with the lands. We have 34 lands. We have 9, 18, so 1, 10, 19, 20, 21. We have 21 untapped lands. So the first observation I have is that there's a few too many tapped cards in here. I like what they do for Jury, but you're a low to the ground deck. Your curve looks very low here. I think, yeah, we got a nice ski slope curve here. Um, so let's,
You want like probably four or five maybe.
yeah,
Too many tap lands. You're giving yourself such a tempo hit with that.
yeah, I would say that we're talking like maximum six because when you have
Yeah.
six in a 34 land deck, that's like 1 in 6 of your cards. So that's kind of like you're going to hit tap lands, but a lot of times it'll just be one of them in your opening hand, and that's okay. You play it on turn one. But when you start hitting them later on, that hurts more. So I think the cards that I would cut here, um,
Ones that are going to be the best, obviously, are going to be your E-Wilds and your
yeah,
Capenna lands because those are
overlooks.
going to give you jury triggers.
Yeah, yeah. I would cut Tramway, Dross Pits. I would cut Smoldering Crater. Actually, let's start with the cycling lands. The Smoldering Crater and the Polluted Mire, I would cut those. So here, let's do this. We're going to duplicate this and we're going to make the changes on stream. So let's do that right away. Okay, so first thing, Tramway can go, Smoldering Crater can go, um, leave. Go away. There we go. Okay. Um, Polluted Mire can go. We're just going to add basics for those. I think you had more mountains than swamps. Maybe it was equal. Um, oh, no, no. It was half and half. The dross pits and oh, you don't have the red one in here. I think we can cut dross pits as well and just go up this. So like what we just did there is we now have 1, 12, 22, 23, 24, 25 untapped lands. So we're still a little high on tap lands. I'm not going to lie, Bajuka Bog is a card that is really, really good, but it's also kind of felt really bad lately. A lot of the combo stuff, like Bajuka Bog, is at its best when you're in green because you can crop rotation for it. It's nice when you have Rakdos Carnarium because you can pick it up and you can mess people up with this card. But a lot of times the things that you're picking off are stuff like Deep Analysis, flashback cards. It's more of like taking away value from people than it is like taking away their combo cards. But some people use like a Displacer or Ghostly Flicker early, or maybe they failed a combo, but they're going to combo next turn and you Bajuka Bog them. So I think that's a good card.
You can play into Graveyard Hate that synergizes well with Yuri. So, for example, you could play a Tormod's Crypt, you could play a Relic of
It's a good
Progenitus,
point.
you
It's
could
a
play
really
a
good point.
Tormod's, yeah, you could play a Tormod's Crypt Keeper even. You're going to get Yuri triggers, you're going to, get some permanents on board that are going to give you really good value. Those I think are probably going to do more for you in the long run than a Vajuka Bog.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm willing to let it stay for now. I think what we're looking at here is that Forgotten Cave and I think the 1 mana cycling lands are the ones that go. Um, this is a 35 land deck, so the next thing we're going to do is add Troll of Khazad-dûm and Oliphant. Both of these cards definitely want to be in here. And this is, you can take
Very
this for.
wrong. I've played against Yuri a number of times. I've had a lot of games against this deck.
Oh yeah, what was your
Based on what
observation?
I've seen, I don't think this is a Tortex deck.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know that Tortex is what you don't want to be discarding creatures and then bringing them back from the yard because it's not really a graveyard deck. It's a Sakdos deck. So what it wants to do is put everything into play and sack it. So I don't know that Tortex is where you want to be.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I think so where Tortex feels the best, and this is a deck that kind of has the ingredients for it, is when you're taking bad creatures in your hand like a Zentarum Bandit or a Horde Robber, and you're getting back like Underdark Explorer or Chain Devil or Dimir Houseguard or something like that. It is a good card, but it takes a special home. And it used to be there was a period of time where there were a couple of really insane performances from people with Tortured Existence. And I think it caused people to think this is a black staple. And it's good, don't get me wrong, but I just don't think it's actually a black staple. It might be that one of the nice things about Tortured Existence is that if you have Tortex and a Troll, you can ramp not ramp, but you're going to hit your land drops, right? You take whatever you have in your hand, put it into your graveyard, cycle the troll again. There's some cool stuff there, but I think that we're gonna have better cards for this deck, right, Brownie? Like I think that we can do better than Tortured Existence. I want Reaping the Graves. I
Sure, sure.
want to get like 6
Yeah,
creatures back from my graveyard because there was a combo war and you didn't die, and then just be like,
right,
get all my creatures back. That's like so
right.
much better. So Derpy says I added it for the artifact loops for Tortured Existence. Can you explain what you mean for the
Oh,
artifact loops? Oh, you have Workshop's
he's
assistant. All right, all right, all right.
he's doing
Let's
retriever loops.
yeah, let's scroll back. Cut the combo. I could mince words. I could be like diplomatic and stuff. We're gonna lean into like boss bitch Robs. Okay, like cut the combo. You're an aggro deck. I I I really don't like slotting in combos into decks that where the cards are individually pretty bad. Like honestly, Ashnod's Altar is a broken magic card. Okay, like I lived through KCI when it was a thing and it was fucked up. It was awful. But this is different. We don't have ways to find this. We don't have Demir Machinations to tutor for 3. We don't have a way to tutor for Ashnod's Altar at all. And so this combo requires Workshop Assistant, Mirror Retriever, Ashnod's Altar, and then we actually still aren't infinite. We're just paying. We're just for every cycle we're getting one. We're paying 1 mana. So if we have a Witty Roastmaster, we can do a damage for every mana we have, right? And I think that that's just not good enough. So I really advise to cut these kinds of cards. We also have the Workshop Assistant. We can make a ton of room for just good cards that aren't these things.
Let's do one that's better. So I can throw in a very simple Perilous Mirror.
Yeah.
Perilous Mirror is gonna be better than both Mirror Retriever and Workshop Assistants in this deck. I'm gonna just lay this out. I was playing Yuri this past weekend in a pod against Guildmage and Malcolm Kedis. I was playing Phyrexian Censor. It came down to a 1v1 between me and Yuri, and Yuri won that game. And one of the ways it won that game was I got down to 5 life. He was able to trigger the Perilous Mirror, hit me for 2, and then used a card that in Yuri is absolutely insane, but doesn't see play that often, and that's Lightning Spear.
Oh yeah, Lightning Spear is sick. Amazing.
Lightning Spear is like the card for this deck. It does absolutely everything you want it to do.
Yeah, this is a great recommendation. Yeah.
And the thing is, because I was on Phyrexian Censor, so I have a card in play that says he couldn't cast more than 1 spell per turn. Having that activated ability, he was able to bolt me without spending a spell.
Nasty.
Right? So he was able to set up his turn, hit me. Yes.
And it's very cheap. We have to keep in mind this card is trample on your Yuri. It gives power.
Yes.
It's 2 mana. Equipment, when it gets above like 3 mana to play an equip, starts to get really bad because auras just look better. This is 1 to equip. When your creature dies, you just keep fucking equipping it, and it's like a 3 mana bolt that's sitting in play. It's really strong. I love this recommendation for this deck. What we're gonna do too is we're gonna organize things into payoffs, sack outlets, and food. This is something for aristocrats you need to keep in mind. Aristocrats has 3 ingredients. You have things that sacrifice, things that pay off, and things that you eat. And you have to balance those things a lot. It's why aristocrats is hard to build and high risk to play, because it wants to have everything in play all at the same time. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to get it all out because sometimes you don't draw it. You have A, B, and not C, or you have A and C, but not B. And then all the cards don't feel as good because individually they're not as powerful. Together, they do broken things. There's a reason why they don't print cards like Carrion Feeder and Viscera Seer very much anymore, because the cards do too much when they're paired with everything, but they're also tiny and they die to everything. So there's kind of that. So Grim Initiate, this is food. Impulsive Pilfer, this is food. Persistent Specimen is food. So we're just going to go through some of these things here. While I organize this, Brownie, you want to talk about anything else you see here?
Yeah, some really great cards for this deck. I'm sure some of these are in here. I can't see the whole deck myself. Do we have Blood Fountain in here?
Yes.
Perfect. So we're set there.
I do see. I'm going to send you the list link here.
Yeah, let me send me the list. Other things that I've seen this deck do that are just very good. It leans a lot into blood tokens. and
Yeah,
also
blood
treasure
tokens are great.
tokens. Blood tokens are great here because you know when the player that I've seen play it is Aaron, and Aaron is in
Yeah.
our servers. If you're in the server Derpy, I would tag Aaron, aggro Aaron. You can't miss him. He's got a great list for this, and really what he does is he does a lot on board with treasure tokens and blood tokens. So somebody, let's say, will go to somebody will go to kill Yuri. Let's say sometimes Yuri gets bounced a lot, and so Yuri comes back into play and is like maybe got 2 counters on him, right? And so it's like a 3/3. Somebody will go to bolt it, and he'll just sack a couple treasures, and just it's like a counter spell. So those kinds of things, just having those on board or being able to use the blood token and discard are ways that he gets around it. Let me see if I can pull up the list.
There's actually, looking at cards like Implement of Combustion, I would almost rather have like
Sure.
Seal of Doom and Seal of Fire, even though it draws a card.
Yep. One of the things he uses some cheap stuff that will also deal with. He can use it as sack fodder. So, for example, like a Dust Legion Zealot. I don't know if that's in there. That's a great one for a deck like this. Let's see.
Oh, there's also the new Mordor Muster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we've got some ramp here. We're almost certainly going to take your ramp and cut almost anything that isn't 2 mana. Because you're a really low to the ground deck, you really don't want to be doing that. Network Terminal is the one exception, because it is such an efficient way to loot through your deck. There's a part of me that, like in Rakdos, there's a lot of really good things to put into your graveyard that you can unearth or cast back again. And so there's a part of me with all the blood tokens and with the Network Terminal that having some things that you could basically discard into the graveyard and get value from them later is really excellent. Okay, so Patron of the Arts here. This is going to be food as well. I like Patron in this deck.
I don't see a Thunderclap. Thunderclap should absolutely be in here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, yeah, Thunderclap. Does he have Snuff Out too?
I do see a Snuff
it
Out
is.
in here.
Yep,
The one I'm blanking on the name right now because it's late here. What is the enchantment that it's a red enchantment and it reads pay 1 red. You sacrifice a creature and it deals damage equal to its power to any target.
Soul's Fire.
Is that what it is?
Yep. Well, there's Fling and Soul's Fire. Soul's Fire doesn't require a sacrifice. You're talking about Fling.
Oh no, I'm thinking, or maybe it deals it to each creature. Hold on.
Oh, you're thinking of Blood Fire Infusion.
That's it. That should be in here.
Yep, Bloodfire Infusion is a sweeper that a lot of people don't know about. I do wonder whether this kills too much of our own stuff, but I guess there's a lot of things in our deck that get quite big when we sacrifice things. Like we don't have Mortician Beetle in here, right?
No.
Oh my gosh.
Usually this is getting used because Yuri is so often sacking so much of its board. Sometimes it's just Yuri in play, and so you're using this to sack Yuri. And if Yuri's huge, you're gonna absolutely annihilate the board. Plus, probably yeet a player out of the game because Yuri's probably pretty big at that point.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. Okay, so we've got removal here. Let's get Makeshift Munitions under removal. Makeshift Munitions is also really a sweeper. Is another thing that it is.
This is the deck that will like things like Terrarion and Wizard's Rockets. I don't think I saw those.
Yeah, and you know, I think we can actually do a little bit better than that. Let's pull up something I have here because I've actually built a deck that's really similar to this recently, and I've played it, and I actually won my first game with it, which was really fun. And that is Gut plus Agent of the Iron Throne. And so I've had a lot of chance to explore the Rakdos, low to the ground, sacrifice stuff. And there's better food, I think, than that. There's a lot of 1 mana stuff. We now have Ichor Drinker. Flare Husk is 2 different bodies. Synth,
Yep.
Beamtown Beatstick, and Sticky Fingers are both basically repeat food makers, right?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
food as in the term for like things we can eat, but they're also great for
Yep.
jury. Um, Chalice is going to be really good here too. So let's basically take this. We're going to copy this over, and we're going to use a great Moxfield feature. Moxfield, if you're out there, you should sponsor me one of these days. I'd love to partner with you because I am definitely a Discord power user, and I love this software. So okay, so here's some of the differences with the decks, and we're just going to move a lot of stuff over because these decks are so similar. We're going to do Felwar Stone, Ingenious Artillerist, Darkness, Mycosynth Wellsprings, probably pretty damn good. You're like a low land count or low mana source deck in general. Nimblewright Schematic, Galvanic Blast is insane. Ichor Drinker, Goblin Matron is like high card advantage, and you can find cards like Mogwar Marshal, which are a ton of value, as well as cards like Tarfire, which is great too, as a tutorable removal piece. Prize Statue, also great. I mean, quite easy. It's quite possible that these decks are almost identical. You know, it's just that you don't have a sacrificer in the command zone, so you wouldn't play like
Agreed.
Wrangle, things like that. But like, um,
I mean, there is a version of Yuri that is going to be more like Rakdos Control, where you're
yeah,
doing a lot of those like trees and effects, wrangle whatever. You're going to grab them, you're going to sack them to a carrion feeder, you're going to get a Yuri trigger, and that's one way to play it. But I like the aggro version more. To me, it plays much more consistently. Um,
yeah. I think we're gonna cut on some of the graveyard hate too. I don't think we need that much. This is a very aggressive deck, and aggressive decks basically are saying I'm cutting reactive stuff for proactive stuff. I'm ending the game. I'm asking the questions. I'm not having as many answers because of that. Because every deck you have to make you have to make cuts. You have to make value calls on whether what it is you're doing is part of your game plan or not. So having both Nihil Spellbomb and Relic is not part of your game plan. I think personally. But these pingers are also massively important because aggro decks, basically, one of the things that we're learning is that aggro decks need to play pingers because they cannot start round two of the game, which is like maybe the combo player is dead. And now I need to turn the corner and kill everybody else. They cannot do that with those players at 30 life. That's really hard. You need to have an Impact Tremors, a Mirkwood Bats, Witty Roastmaster, Bloodseeker, something that softens them up a little bit. Derpy says, "Sorry for not formatting, but thanks for taking a look." Oh, totally. Don't worry about it. This is a great learning experience for everybody. So, I really like Bloodseeker for that reason because Bloodseeker
yes.
is dealing damage to people like a pinger, but it's also anti-combo. You cannot Ghostly
Yes.
Flicker with this thing in play, or you can't combo at least. So I like that. With all the rocks that you're playing, Reckless Fireweaver and Artillerist is great. Voldaren Epicure also pings. Beamtown Beatstick is important. I don't think you need the Gray Flicker effects. What do you think? Gray Flicker in this deck? It's like fine, but like
Imagine that's typically going to be for what, like the Flesh Bag and the Slum Reaper. They're okay.
I'm
I don't
not
know that you want
super
to
high
lean
on
into
it.
that as much. Yeah, I don't know that you want to
So
lean into that as much. I think what you're looking to do is just keep reloading your hand, putting stuff into play that you can easily sack. That food kind of thing. To say that though, I mean, just to point out, I don't want to just talk about like these are the cards you need. I want to point out a few that I think are very good. Shambling Ghast is like
crack.
the Yuri card.
Yeah.
It's the best Yuri card in my opinion. Um, I have seen many a turn one Shambling Ghast and been like, ah.
Uh, yeah, it's rough. It's very rough. So okay, so I just added like a metric fuck ton of cards. So we need to go through these. So for lands, I added Study Hall and Opal Palace and Path of Ancestry. I think these are all really important cards to be playing, and they're just and frankly, I one of the issues I have with the lands, it is nice for buffing up Jury. Maybe we just play one of the tap lands, so we play like Sulphurous Mire and we don't play Geothermal Bog, and that just means we have one tutorable duel, which is plenty
Yep.
fine. Um, Yeah, and the Dark Ritual and Culling the Weak are cards that I am looking at here. I
Is better. I'm just curious what the Dark Ritual is paying for.
one thing I can hypothesize on here is that Dark Ritual and Culling the Weak are part of an explosive Rakdos game plan where you can go turn one drop, sack it into Culling the Weak, and play a turn two initiative card, or play Dark Ritual and play a turn two initiative or Monarch card. And that's really good. And I think having that in decks is important in Rakdos because it's giving us something explosive to do that's going to just, I mean, if we play an initiative card, we're going to hit all our land drops. We're going to make scary creatures. We're going to hold it on. We're going to hold on to it for like 4 turns. It's almost guaranteeing if we do that that we are going to hit Throne as well.
I can see that.
So the other card that I'm seeing here is like Lotus Petal. I don't like this card. I'm just going to cut this from the list. I think that Lotus Petal is too it's too narrow. It's too little. It doesn't do enough. It's this format isn't cEDH. Blood Aspirant. Oh, great point. Blood Aspirant. Yeah, this is exactly where we want to be. This is the next Gixian Infiltrator. It's a very, very good card. Blood Aspirant's a 2-mana 1/1. Whenever you sack a permanent, put a counter on it. It's the same thing, right? Like this is a great payoff. This is a payoff. It's also a sacrifice outlet, but not really. Blood Aspirant deals 1 damage to target creature if you sack a creature or an enchantment, but you have to tap to do it. It's not great. Voldaren Epicure is food. Ichor Drinker is food. These are also creatures and blockers. It has lifelink as well, so there's some fun stuff you can do there. Mortician Beetle is a payoff. Goblin Chirurgeon is a sack outlet. Well, it's mainly a protection thing, so maybe Goblin Chirurgeon isn't what you want here. Do we care about protecting Jury? I don't think we do.
That's the thing is it's tricky because like there might be turns where you want to, but sometimes this is going to be a dead card.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm also
I will
gonna.
say
Yeah, go ahead.
a very good card to put in here. Sometimes question if it should even be a common is Beetleback Chief. I don't see that in here.
Yeah,
Beetleback
Beetleback
Chief.
Chief.
It's going to give you that food that you need, and it's also just going to establish your board state early.
Yeah. Okay.
I would say that's one that could go in over something like, for example, Direfleet Hoarder or Discordant Piper.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of a couple of cards that never made it into my list was Carrier Thrall, Hoarder, Piper, and Dissenter. All left the deck for other better stuff. And it's better because it's cheap. That's the thing we have to keep in mind. So what I ended up doing in my list was like if we go back to let's look at Gut Iron Throne. Look at the curve of my food. Very cheap. The only stuff that goes into 2 are rocks. Cards that make a lot of food, like a Horde Robber on turn 2 is going to make like 2 treasures, 3 treasures over the course of the game before we eat it. If once it can't attack, we just sack it, right? We attack, sack it. Same with Zentrum Bandit as well, except we actually get the treasure when we attack, which is nice. You stack your triggers, make the treasure, sack the Zentrum Bandit. Quite nice. But basically, like we've had a huge proliferation in 1-mana stuff. We got Voldaren Epicure, Sticky Fingers, Ghast, Shambler, Pilfer, Ichor Drinker, Grim Initiate. None of those cards were available to me when I was playing 60 card and I was playing, Aristocrat stuff. So what I'm going to do here, because I don't want to, we're a little bit over on time here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to send just time for the build itself. What I've done is I've included every card that I think is good. And what I'm going to do for you, Derpy, is we're going to send you a link to my Gut Game of Thrones mid-range deck as well. And let's see. So there's the link to this one. And we're going to send you a link to this one. Let's see. Wait, no, we need to go here, here. And this is going to be your list here. So what we've done is we're sending you a list with all the cards that we would have in it. The things that I would look at for potentially getting rid of is I would actually consider getting rid of Monarch. I don't think Monarch is really what you want to be doing in really aggressive decks. The card advantage has gotten so good that you don't need it anymore. Crimson Fleet Commodore swings once and it dies. It dies to everything. It dies to sweepers, most sweepers. Doesn't die to fire cannonade, um, but we just have better card draw, and we want it to be efficient. And even though it's got a good body, and even though you have a way to ramp into it really quickly with the the Culling the Weak, Dark Ritual stuff, I think it's just not ideal. I would also think that Culling the Weak and Dark Ritual are cards I would be looking at here. I don't think that they're going to do enough in enough games to warrant themselves over a Mana Rock, right?
Yeah, we need acceleration with them. So like I could see doing like a turn 2 initiative with the 1/5 dude who's like terrible to block.
Yeah.
Can't remember his name. I can see a good case for that, and I've actually seen that done in a cPDH game, and it's effective. Yeah, I think in general, if you're really feeling strongly that you want a ritual, I think probably keeping Culling of the Weak. Take a hard look at Dark Ritual.
Yep. So the big fundamental things here that we're going to leave you with are that these pingers are really important. Okay. So we can do a little bit of simple math on them. Okay. So if a Witty Roast Master comes into play and it only gets one trigger at first, it's dealing 1 damage to everybody. That means that it had unblockable on its text. If it gets 2 triggers, it's an unblockable 6 power creature. If it gets 3, it's an unblockable 9 power creature. And it's pressuring everybody while you clap one person. Aggro claps 1, pressures everyone with pingers. So I can't express enough how important the pingers are. They're very, very important to your game plan. So Impact Tremors is a classic example of that. Yeah. I also want to give you a nod at a couple of cards that I see in here that I really like. I love that you have Whale of the Nim. This is a card that a lot of people have not, basically found themselves on yet. But this modal sweeper / protection spell is cracked. Being able to regenerate everything you have for 3 mana, and then for 4 you can do both of them, is really strong. So I like this quite a lot. I think that your removal stuff here is great. Some of the ones that you were missing were Echoing Decay. Echoing Decay is super important right now. Fun fact, the soldier tokens that TPI makes and the soldier tokens that Abdel make, they're different, but they have the same fucking name. What does Echoing Decay read? Same name as that creature. They all die. This is like format staple, okay? Echoing Truth, Echoing Decay, format staples. You play these cards. They're just too damn good right now. They're like Boomerang. I mean, like, if you're in blue and you're not playing Boomerang, you might be doing something wrong. Like, it's important. It's a very good card. If you're not playing Boomerang and you're playing Capsize, you get a pass. But that's a different thing. Cast into the Fire, I think, can go here as well. I don't think we care about our artifacts. That's a reactive mid-range thing to be doing. Tragic Slip is very good here. I think Reb... I don't know about Reb and Pyro. I like them in decks where I can loot them away. You do have some ways to loot. Do you think we have enough looting here, Brownie, that we can be playing these and be happy about them?
I would say I wouldn't main board these unless you're going to a tournament.
Yeah, if you're going to a tournament, I would put them in.
Yeah, if you're going to be playing, cPDH online or with some friends, and you're just catching, I don't want to say casual, but obviously because it's competitive, but you're not playing in a tournament setting. I don't think you need them in the main board. But then when you go to a tournament setting, Pyro for sure, and maybe Rev if you think you need it as well, depending on what you anticipate the meta might be. But I don't think you main board them for most games because sometimes you could discard it away. It's going to be a dead card most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Other than that, I think that, and I know we made a lot of changes to this deck. Some other cards I would consider cutting are Bloodflow Connoisseur. I'm not very high on this card. Bloodflow Connoisseur is a 3 mana 1/1 that you need to sacrifice 2 creatures to make it a 3/3. Right? Like, if you do the math on that's a lot of resources. Winfro says, been a lot of fun hanging out. I probably missed you already. I bet you already left, but been a lot of fun hanging out. Hope everyone has a great rest of their evening. Winfro, you are a hero. Thank you for joining us. By the way, Winfro, fun fact, is one of the longest running people on the internet I've been playing and talking about Pauper with. And I recently got to meet him in the flesh, in person at Rags to Riches, the Pauper 60 card legendary tournament that happens in Seattle quarterly. So that was really fun meeting you. So Connoisseur goes out. What's up?
out one more card that I have seen do a lot of work in this list, and that is Sting Scourger.
Ah, you like Sting Scourger, huh? Tell me about that and why you like it.
Okay, well, it's not so much that I like it; it's that I've seen it do a lot of work for the
Okay.
Fury player that plays the list. Sting Scourger is good because it's a 2-mana ETB. It's going to return something to hand. It can put up a block if it needs to, or when the Echo cost comes around, you just don't pay it. Sack it, you get a Yuri trigger.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess
Red
the
bounce is
question,
not
like,
something people are expecting.
yeah, so I mean, in that same vein, and I think this is more just a general question, like, is that a reason that red players should be playing Dead Gone? Because Dead Gone is the same thing, right? 1 mana, you're going to get a shock, or you're going to get 3 mana bounce a creature. And it's a pretty unusual effect. And I tend to be pretty bullish on cards that break the color pie. And because you never prepare for them, right? Like you might have a counter spell, but like I have won so many games with this card right here. This card
Yeah.
consistently ends games for me. Consistently wins games. It's nuts, right? And it's because it's color shifted, and it's best in aggro decks, because you get this whole turn where you turn the tempo around. They didn't do any damage to you, and now you are going to fuck the shit out of them. You are going to bulldoze them with stuff, right? And if you don't need it, you loot it away. You've got lots of blood tokens to get rid of it, but it's just a game-ending spell, and people should never prepare for the 1 mana darkness effect, right? Because you only have one of it in your deck, and it's 1 mana. The 40k set was cracked. Yep, it was really good. So I think we have a good baseline here. The cards that I would consider cutting would be Crack the Earth, Eaten Alive. So Rakdos has such good removal that we don't need to sack things to kill things. Infernal Plunge, this is also kind of in line with that like turboing out things. I think we can cut that. Unearth. So Unearth is at its best when you get to cheat on mana cost. But Unearth is also a draw spell, so I kind of like it here. I don't think we need active treason effects. And if we did play them, we would play Bloody Betrayal, and then maybe, what's the other one? There's Bloody Betrayal, Wrangle, and Tentative Connection. Yeah, but that takes Menace.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think this is where we're going to leave it off there for you, Derpy. I hope this is useful for you, and I hope everyone else was able to learn a little bit of something. I think we're going to cut Relic for you too while we're at it. But you're going to need to cut 34 cards. It's not going to be, it'll be a couple of lands that'll come out. That'll get you down. Implement of Combustion comes out. There's a couple of other cards here I'm not super high on, like the Hoarder, the Piper, the Dissenter, the Carrier Thrall. Carrier Thrall is nice because it produces something that you can sack like on command for mana, which is great. But the other ones, Doom Dissenter actually upgrades the body, which is nice. Perilous Mirror gives you something you can kill things with. There's a lot to like there, and I like that this is a great nasty end deck too, because you get to draw 3 off of the nasty end. So we're gonna leave it at that, and we're gonna head back to this. But thank you for your donation, Derpy, and I hope that was helpful for you. So let's go back here to the Sailor's Bane, and I think we're feeling pretty good about this, right? Like we've drawn up some hands. They've looked really good. Here's another one that's great. We'll just run this through a couple of quick things. We'll go Ponder. Wow. This is a very explosive hand, chat. So we keep the Terror, right? And then leave these 2 on top.
Yep.
And actually, the funny thing is that as much as I want a Thought Scour right now, I want a Foresight. Foresight's going to guarantee that we get a turn 3 Bane, right? So we go Gush, Foresight, and we're actually going to draw that card. And now you're going to see why this card is so disgusting. Because now we're actually going to, we're going to shuffle it away too. So which ones do we get rid of? Like Mental Note we don't need anymore because we're going to get our commander out. Curate is also pretty bad, but it digs deeper. So like Opt is another one. We could get rid of something like a Compelling Argument is no longer good because it's like 1 mana cantrip. And then maybe we get rid of a... the funny thing is that because we have Mystic Sanctuary, we could actually seed our graveyard with something we want to draw.
Yep.
So let's put Rush of Knowledge in there.
Why not?
Love it. Disgusting. So yeah, these are, oh, but this is exile. So we actually don't want to do that. These will be in
Okay.
exile. Yeah. Exile over here. So we need one more card like sleight of hand or
Light
some,
hand or searing visions, something like that. Yeah.
maybe opt, I guess would be another one. Or I guess it would be, no, it'd be sleight of hand, right? Because that's a, yeah, sleight of hand. Yep. Okay, cool. So we do that. We're going to draw at our end step. And then we're going to, wow. Okay. Oh, wait, this is supposed to be shuffled away. And so is this. So we're supposed to shuffle this away, draw for the foresight, draw on our turn. And we have 5 in graveyard. Now we're going to go land into Thought Scour. And I think this is going to get us there. 1, 2. Yep, easy. Wow. See, this is what I'm talking about. You guys didn't see the hotness until now, but this is a turn 3 Sailor's Bane. Nobody can do shit about this. If they have a counter spell, good for them, but we're going to counter it, and we cast it again next turn. And we're going to follow it up by Fade Away, dude. We just have it. We just have Fade Away just tucked away. So now we get to go Island into Terror, right? Is it just Graveyard? So 5. So we actually need one more card in the graveyard to do that. So we'll go cycle Lonely Sandbar into Dispersal Shield. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could go 1, 2 for Tolarian Terror. Hit somebody for 7. We don't need mana up right now. It doesn't matter. Yep. And then we'll go our turn. Spell Rupture is gross. We probably hold on to Mental Journey for the draw 3. We could also, I mean, this is like super fast. We're on turn 5 and we're swinging for like our 19th damage. So yeah, I mean, we just hold this stuff up. Maybe we, there's nothing in here we really want. So we don't really want a Mystic Sanctuary, but we could go Mental Journey, Island, play the Island, play Mystic Sanctuary, put Mental Journey back on top, like that, just because we want the draw 3 later on. And then we're holding up these things, so we'll counter something, say with like Dispersal Shield, and then we'll draw Mental Journey, play our 6th land. We're still just hitting people. And the thing is that these things came down so early that it doesn't matter that we don't have unblockability because we're tempoing them, right?
Oh, they've developed a board. You could just fade away at this point and then
yeah.
swing in.
Yeah, I mean, we're turn 6. Like, that gut player is totally tapped out right now, right?
Right.
1, 2, 3, fade away. The sick thing is we can actually get this Mystic Sanctuary back later on with Daze or with Gush, so that we can, get like a Rush of Knowledge back. So we're going to fade away. We're going to need to pay 2 for our own stuff, which is fine. Or, you know what we do? We pay 1 and we sack a land, right? And then we can keep Counterspell up. And then let's just say we have to counter something. So we're going to do Spell Rupture, draw, Logic Knot. Like, this is classic mono blue tempo. Look at this. We're like on board with these like scary ass creatures. We can bounce things and loot. We can draw. We can, I mean, this turn, say we just like don't do anything and we let the table deal with it. Oh, we don't have the land for Mental Journey anymore. So we'll probably have to fade away, force away, loot. And now I think we discard the Mental Journey. And then we just draw for turn, pay 1, 2, 3, 4, cast Hieroglyphic Illumination, draw 2, play our land, hold up Counterspell, like Logic Knot somebody's shit with these. We're still killing them. And like by this turn, like we're really, really ahead. Like, look at all the card draw we have.
For some reason Sailor Bane got removed. Who cares? You're just going to recast it. So at that point, people are not going to waste their removal. It becomes a real problem.
Yeah, Sailor's Bane, when you have to kill it and you know that it's coming back, feels like card disadvantage. It feels like really bad. It feels really bad to kill these things. If somebody casts an Edict here, we just sack Tolarian Terror and we cast Sailor's Bane again. Like, Tolarian Terror is more important in that case. We just recast it. So this
Right.
is sick. This is really sick. This is kind of like what I see when I play it most of the time. But I think what we're going to do is wrap things up here. You've been very gracious with your time with us tonight, Brownie, and I really appreciate it. This has been a really cool live stream, I think, for folks to get a really like great laser focus look at our card decision making and exactly what it takes to get your deck down to 100 when you're looking at only good cards. Like,
I think that that's the important thing about where our format is at right now. So if anybody watching is maybe not as new to the format, understand in Pauper, there's no longer like, what cards do I use? We are like flush with cards at this point. It is almost impossible to like make cuts. And decks are getting more consistent and getting much more threatening. And if Commander Masters, maybe we get nothing, but if we get gas like we did with Commander Masters last year, if those image galleries come out, we find out we have a ton of stuff. You're going to find that these decks become even more of a threat. At this point, it's not that a lot of new effects are being printed. It's that consistent
replicate.
effects are being printed, and so we're getting all our draws, we're getting like tons, like you can see here, like with these draws, we're just getting tons of draws that are doing essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
With our counter spells, like we're getting counter magic that is very good. We're getting like the cyclers, like the cyclers just got better. So now you're in a situation where it's like, oh, the old cyclers, I don't even need those. So it's a very exciting format. It's a very exciting time. Commons are some of the best cards in Magic as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I couldn't have said it better myself. It's like, and it'd be really interesting to kind of project outward, like 5 years, right? And say like, what does this format look like? Because, we're already at this stage where like Abdel continues to get ridiculous flicker effect, and Abdel is busted because single target flickers turn into ghostly flicker and displace, but better. You're flickering way more. And Gretchen is going to continue to get untappers. It's going to continue to get cards like the new Blighted Burgeoning, which is like, it makes a body. It's really good. And then for everything else, we're going to continue to get unbelievably efficient removal. These like improvised club, Heartfire, shit like even just like the go for the throat type stuff, right? So all the decks are going to continue to get juiced with new stuff. If you're playing in Rakdos and you're doing like food, token, artifact, creature, sacrifice synergies, you're going to continue to get cards like Ichor Drinker, right? Grim Initiate, like, and the consistency is going to be nuts, right? We're going to be looking at this time where it's like, oh wait, you play 2-mana food in your gut deck, but like, how good is that 2-mana food? Because we have 12 of these other 1-mana ones. Like, why would you do that, right? And it's just going to be repeat consistency all the way through. And the great thing is, even with all that consistency, we're probably never going to see this format turn into something that is like as degenerate as CDH or CEDH, right? It's always going to be that probably like, maybe it'll get down to like average 8 turns or something. But like, that's still a lot of game to play. And I think for a lot of people, they want to play Magic. They don't want to just like have somebody turbo steamroll them on turn 1, fail, and then have the next person go off and win.
And I do think we do have the presence of turbo combo in our format, but the nice thing is that it's usually interactable.
Yep, very fragile, very fragile.
So that's always a plus. And that's the thing. This is just a perfect example, like with the redundancy. I built Rosie Cotton of South Lane from Lord of the Rings. And a great deck, lots of fun. The thing was I looked through and I was like, I think if they had printed this card a year ago, I could not have made this deck.
Yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
Like, I can now.
Oh yeah.
Because we just have so many creatures that ETB make a token, or sorceries that will make 2 or 3 tokens. And she cares about tokens entering the battlefield. Yeah. When you look at the card pool, it's incredibly exciting. It's becoming really, really. It becomes a matter of, what cards do I like to play? Even when you're getting into the format.
Yep.
People are like, what are the broken decks? And I'm like, well, what do you like to play?
Yeah, like, what do you like to do?
Like, yeah, aside from, like, honestly, at this point, the only archetype that we can't do is Legends Matter. That's it.
That's it.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to do control, we got control. You want to do simic combo, we got simic combo. You want to do aggro, we have aggro. You want to do mid range, we have mid range. Stacks, we got it. So, it's just a matter of what interests you at this point.
And to that exact point, there are not a lot of formats where you can, well, let's talk apples to apples. You cannot play whatever archetype you want in cEDH. And frankly, even in Commander, aggro,
Yeah, aggro struggles.
120 life. There's been a lot of discussion on Twitter lately. I think you've seen some of it, of people talking about like Commander having too much life. And we're just cackling because we get it. 30 life points is right where it's supposed to be, right? You need a little
Yep.
bit more because there's more players, so more than 20. But 40 free mulligan, everybody drawing a card is fucking broken, dude. I'm a 60 card player at heart. That's where I started. And I think about that. When I was playing Rags, I was like, dude, what if we both drew a card? What if I just got to mulligan my first hand?
The other thing to keep in mind is that life gain is hyper efficient in that format. So, it's and that's the thing. Like it can be, sometimes you can just gain enough life where you're just like, okay, I can't lose.
Yeah, like Sarah Ascendant
So
turn 1, start hitting
yeah,
people.
right,
Yeah, I mean,
right.
I think that's a problem with Commander a bit. Is that like life totals don't matter. Life totals are not as important. Life total is this massive resource pool that you just get to burn through endlessly, and you just kind of like whatever because you know you're not going to die to that. You're going to die to something else. And in Pauper Commander, life totals matter, and that's so important. It's really much closer to how Richard Garfield intended the game. Life gain matters, interaction matters, the stack matters, your creatures matter. Like, we're looking at a deck here that actively wants to only play instants and sorceries, and we're having to look at it and say, are we going to just die to a gut? Like, we're playing cards like Lethargy Trap, Downsize, and Fade Away for a reason. We need to be able to handle the heat. And I love what that does to deck building because it makes the turbo, single minded, pod racing stuff not as good, right? And I think that's good for Magic. I think that's really good for Magic. Look, okay, here's a great example. I have Cycling Storm built here. I've been playing Cycling Storm for a long time. Ever since it first, really before it came out, when it was a mono black deck and you were playing like Haunted Misery or whatever it was. And like, I have this deck foiled out. That's a foil uh, blood cell blood celebrant. Yeah, it's like $20 card or something. I've put money into this deck. It's full foil, right? I hate playing this deck. And the reason being is it's so unfun for my opponent. And like I recognize that Magic is a zero sum game, in that you have to decide to enjoy the game when you're losing. If you don't, you're just not going to have fun at Magic. And it's a good thing to learn as an adult. Like, when you are making mistakes, when you are not winning, you should still try and find ways that you're having fun, that you're enjoying what you're doing. Like, you screw something up while you're woodworking, and it's like, well, at least I'm out here woodworking this, and I learned something, right? But these decks that like turbo out and they solitaire, they're not playing Magic. You wrote this on Twitter just recently. If you, in fact, can we just find this on Twitter really quick? Here, let's just pull this up because this is like if you aren't following Brownie, by the way, you really should. You had like 4 posts in the last like 3 days that were insanely hot. Like just so let's pull you up here. Okay. I love this, by the way. Pauper Commander player. You love to see it. Just such a flex. Okay, so, oh God, this one was really good here. Where was the one where you talked about
You might need to go back. Yeah, it was bad. Yes, there it is.
game of Magic? Magic is a game focused around creature combat. So if you're not going to combat in your Commander games, you are playing solitaire, not Magic. Dude,
This was really targeted more towards Commander players, EDH specifically. I don't think it's as much of a problem in our format. And
no,
also, to
no.
be clear, we have combo decks in our format that are not combat based, and that's fine. Like,
Yeah,
I'm not sniping them.
nobody's
Really,
misinterpreting
this is
that.
about, I have been a part of, and I have witnessed EDH games where everybody's just building a massive board state, but nobody wants to go to combat because they don't want to trade resources. They're like, "This is scary."
Yeah.
I'm like, it's like, no, it's a combat focused game. And to make it fun, it's got to be interactive. And I think sometimes, people are speculating right now. Are we going to get a common wrath? And I got to be honest with you. I hope we don't. Um,
Yeah.
because I think it makes games much less interactive. In a 1v1 setting, it can win you a game, and that's perfectly fine, right?
Yep.
That's what we're trying to do in 1v1. But in a game like this, like to just wrath, unless like you're going to win that turn
Yep.
or next turn, what's it really accomplishing?
Yeah.
Um,
The two
you know,
mana wraths do exactly what we want.
exactly.
The
Exactly. The ones that
yeah.
we have now are fine. They're probably not going to clear everything,
Nope.
and it's gonna make it a lot harder for somebody to get ahead, but it's not going to like completely reset the game. And that's really what makes I think this format particularly fun.
Yeah. It's a great format, and I really I try to avoid hot takes because I feel like it creates drama at times that I am like very allergic to. I have a bit of an anti-drama bubble around me these days, and it's good for my mental health. I'll tell you what.
Sure.
Less hot takes equals less sad equals less wrinkles on your brain equals less sad. So but that take I think is really smart, and it has a lot to say about Pauper Commander because we don't have in cDH, which is our closest comparison, everybody should be going fast because it's such a proactive format and it's so efficient. You have 2 card combos to end the game. And so if you aren't going fast, you are probably doing it wrong, right? I mean, if you're playing like Tolerant Sky Summoner, you know, you're gonna. Do you have like how many instant speed interaction spells do you have for free? Because people are gonna be winning before you ever play your commander, right? And I think that and in Pauper Commander, with 30 to 40% of people playing combo, what we have is this amazingly dynamic space to work in, wherein anybody can play any particular archetype that they want, and there's so much room for that, so much room for dynamic gameplay, for combat matters, for important decision making. I just love it, and I really don't see myself moving to any other format anytime soon. It's just too good. It's just too damn good, and it's going to keep getting better for combo players and for the people fighting them. So, with that, Brownie, you're a hero, man. I really appreciate it. For folks, I reached out to Brownie like this morning and was like, "Hey, you want to come on live stream?" And he was like, well, "Let me check." Yeah, sure, let's do it. So, thank you for your time, and I know it's late where you're at, so thank you for sticking around and sharing with everybody your wisdom and your insight on the format.
Absolutely happy to do it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Connoisseurs of Fine Common Cardboard, I want to do one thing before we go here. I do want to, let me bring it up here. Got to make sure we don't dox anyone here because I've done that before on accident. I was thanking patrons and I ended up sharing their email addresses. Bad, Ryan, bad. So what I want to do is do a quick rundown of our patron tiers. If you are excited about this content, if you're enjoying this, if you love the great co-hosts we bring on, the passion that we bring to the format, and the way that we're expanding people's awareness and advocating for the format on the whole, while deepening our understanding of the format with our insights and our deck building and our let's builds, our gameplay. This is a great way to do it. Our Patreon here has 5 tiers: 2, 5, 10, 20, and $50 a month. I'm not sharing it. There we go. And it's at patreon.com/common connoisseurs. This is a great way to support us. We have an amazing $10 tier here that includes everything from voting on Let's Builds, access to the interfaces you see here, member shoutouts, which we're going to do in a moment here, and of course, being able to see the progress on the Let's Builds before they happen. Patrons get to actually work on the Let's Builds before they come to this, right? And they get to see what's happening, which is a really cool way to do it. And you get, of course, access to an exclusive part of our Discord. So please consider donating at whatever level you find you are able to afford, whatever matches your level of passion for what we're doing. And with that, I'm going to thank our patrons for their contributions. So we're going to go through them. We've got the PDH Pod, Sanctuary PDH, Jack, Eric, Adkin, Jerry, Zach, Scooby, Chris, Mizu, William, Paul, Corey, Derek, Devin, Ian, Bobby, Jin Shooting Star, and our longest running patron, Noyark. Thank you everybody for your contributions so much. Every time Clay and I, see somebody sign up for this, it's really validating and helps us let us know that our time is valuable and that it's worth it. Clay and I are both kind of working like 2-ish full-time jobs right now. And it feels really, really good emotionally to see that. Even when it's $2 a month, that makes a huge difference for content creators like us to keep the fire going. So with that, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your contributions, chat, for all the things that you brought to this deck build. And thank you, Brownie, for sticking around and helping me navigate this. I would not have been able to do this without a second set of eyes on the list. So I appreciate you.
Happy to help. Thanks for having me.
Okay, cool. Connoisseurs of Fine Common Cardboard, thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you have a great rest of your day, your morning, whatever it is, wherever you are in the world, and we'll catch you on the battlefield. Peace out.